And the sign, everybody's ready. We could get started and we'll roll along here.
All right, we're ready to go.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have time for public comment. Do we have anyone that would like to make a public comment at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda for today?
Madam Chair, I'd move the agenda as printed.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the agenda as printed for today. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda has been approved. Okay, and now for the board minutes from our previous meeting. Everyone had a chance to look those over.
Madam Chair, I move the minutes be approved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion to approve minutes from our last meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. All right. Then I believe we have Joel. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here today for just approval of a hire, of, Robert Bischoff, a full-time, facility worker for 3 to 11:30, and then at a step A12, step 1, I guess, it's level 1, A12, step 1, at $16.73 an hour, so. And then it would,
Chair, move to approve hire of Robert Bischoff as full-time facilities worker effective July 7th.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion on the hiring of Robert?
Question, how much training does a new hire get? And what I'm asking is safety type training.
we do go through the whole safety the safety, safe assure, right to know and all the training, plus we do a, custodial training day, where they'll go through all the, right to know stuff and, safety training.
The reason I ask
Yep.
that is because this person will be working alone at night.
Yep,
Yeah, I always worry about those folks when they get into situations where they try to lift something and,
right,
you know.
yep, but we usually go through the lifting procedures and the proper lifting methods and
Okay,
on that,
thanks, Joel.
yep.
Any further questions on the hiring of Mr. Bischoff? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain.
All right, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Good. And we have Brian.
Morning.
Good morning.
Brian Cruz, County Sheriff. Just one item before you this morning. That's to hire a full-time correctional officer, and that's Nicole Tollefson. This will be effective July 7th, and she'll be on level B22, step 1, which is $20.53 an hour.
I'll make a motion to approve Nicole Tollefson as correction officer, level 1, step 1, effective July 7th.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion
Is she come to us with some training in this, or? I know, so,
Brand new.
training.
Yep.
What's the training period for that, for this position?
About 12 weeks.
It is.
Yep, give or take. Some people go through it quicker depending on their background or their knowledge, and some take a little longer.
So is that before she can be left alone on
Yep.
the shift?
Yep. So we do, our training is usually in 3 phases. The first phase is just observation. The second phase, they do some, their trainer does some, and then the third phase, they're doing it on their own and we're watching them, so. And then by the end of that 12 weeks, they'll be completely on their own.
Thank you.
But they come to us with a certificate, right? They have to,
No certificates with the jail,
Okay.
jail personnel or dispatch at this time,
all right.
so.
Any additional questions for Brian? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of hiring Nicole, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Brian, on a side note, a lot of town festivities and stuff been pretty well attended, everything going pretty good there.
Yep, it's been a very busy summer. I think people are definitely getting out and about, so.
Not busy, I mean, for you busy or?
We are busy,
Define busy.
yes, we are. I think just in general it's busy, but we are busy as well.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, we haven't had, knock on wood, we haven't had any major issues. A lot of DUIs, still a lot of domestic, still a lot of mental health stuff, but it's been, our numbers are pre-2019 numbers, so pre-COVID, even higher than that. So I think the last I checked, we're 5% over our 2019 numbers. And most of that is occurring during our daytime hours and not at nighttime, so. And now that the bars are open later, we've seen that increase as well, so.
Okay.
Yep, busy summer.
Were there some fires over the weekend with fireworks or lost fingers or anything because of fireworks?
No, nothing reported. There was a couple of fires over the weekend, but nothing associated with fireworks. That was my concern though, coming into this weekend.
I thought, oh my goodness.
We had a lot of firework complaints, a lot of fireworks, but no issues that we were aware of.
Fires or fingers?
We're still in red flag.
What's that?
We're still in red flag,
Yes. Yep.
and that does not extend to campfires within a ring.
Correct. At this time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Saw some big fires. Again, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, cars, please.
Yep.
But the wood started on fire because it was just
Right.
going right down the line.
Yep.
I don't mind the fireworks so much, but my dog, of course, doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And then they start on like the Friday, and they're still doing them yesterday.
constant.
That's when I get like, I guess that's okay, but
No, it's not. The big ones, especially in town, they're not supposed to do that. But when 100 people are doing it, how do you?
I know.
I mean, it's not like it was in the past where 1 or 2 would do it. It's easy to catch them. There's too many people
no,
to
I
catch them
know,
all.
they were doing it like in the middle of the street, a half a block from me, so I kinda watched for a while.
Right.
Maybe not.
Well, some of the fireworks that they can buy too is almost as good as what you're
It
gonna
is.
see
Mhm.
at a city fireworks display.
Do those people have to get a permit?
They do. They're supposed to, and I'm not aware of any permits that went out this year. So,
I can bet some of those out at the lakes, they don't get them
No.
for those.
I'm gonna abstain from this conversation.
Why would that be, Danny?
Looking at your hand.
Yeah, they're all there.
Foot here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wait a minute, wait, excuse me.
But
Gracious.
just tell me no one you know is still doing it. It was.
Oh.
No, we only do it on the 4th.
There you go, Joe.
Wait.
Perhaps.
No, where you live. Oh, gracious, yes. Well, that was good. Anything else, Brian?
that's all I have for today.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yes, very good. Okay, then we have Diane. Before Diane starts, I read the newspaper and there was a really nice article on the front page of the Independent Review that talks about our public health system, and I just kudos to our wonderful health system and to Diane.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Yep.
Diane Winter from Public Health. I have one agenda item for your consideration this morning, and that's to change the employment status of Brenda Boleen, who is a part-time administrative clerk. She's been working temporary full-time since January, And given the retirement that we had in May and that position that we did not fill, I would like for Brenda's status to be changed to permanent full-time, effective July 1st, 2021.
I would make a motion that we change Brenda Boleyn's status to permanent full-time, effective July 1.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Now, some time ago, we had talked about that there would maybe be a coordination between public health and social services, and this is that, the culmination of that initial conversation.
Exactly. We're still talking about where we can partner and share resources and yes.
And as I read the request, this will actually result in an annual savings.
It will, because we did not fill the full-time position that was vacated as a result of retirement. So we moved around some responsibilities, and at this time it's going very well, because we've seen a decrease in those COVID calls related to just general questions, vaccination requests, et cetera. So the foot traffic and the phone traffic is considerably less than it was prior to COVID, as well as in January when we kind of saw the uptick in telephone calls related to vaccination. So it's very manageable at this point.
Very good.
And I know class and comp looked at this position too amongst other ones, and we recommended to move forward this way too, and I think personnel also did too, so I mean, it's been, is vetted the right word pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded,
Personnel looked at it also.
Yeah.
it sounded like a
savings is-
win-win on both
Exactly.
sides. It just sounded,
If we could do this on multiple positions.
Yeah, that would be a
All
good
right,
idea.
I know.
Yeah.
Great.
yeah.
So-
Will it be 50-50? I don't know. I was just curious.
I don't think we
Sharing
know
of-
yet. I mean, we're meeting again this afternoon. We're meeting at least monthly, just initial conversations. Not really certain what it's going to look like, but we've identified some areas where we can start.
As far as job description, but then also funding for the position, will funding come a little bit from each side, or
Though potentially,
any additional discussion on the changing of employment status? Then we'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Diane. Okay.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Paul Vukovich, Social Services. Beautiful rainy day, huh?
Oh,
Finally?
I hope
We're
more
hoping.
comes our way.
We're getting greedy now. We want more.
Yeah,
Well, it
We
might
need
have
more.
knocked the dust down a little bit.
Yeah, that did.
It's getting to a point where half inch is an insult.
Yeah.
I know.
The only order of business I have before you this morning is our accounts payable.
I'll make a motion to approve the social services accounts payable.
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve accounts payable. Is there any discussion?
Wow,
It was, your part was fairly boring.
I looked pretty close.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We're kind of just on a run right now. There are some things that are coming up that are probably going to cause you to ask some questions.
Okay.
And those are really revolving around child protection and our reasonable efforts. But when they come through, I will answer your questions at that point in time.
I did see that you had some estate reclaims, if you will.
Recoveries, correct.
Recoveries, yeah, so I noticed that, some of them that we pay out and then we're able to recoup some of them dollars later on.
We do, and we get a percentage of that back as for part of our collections efforts. And so that's an area of business that we're really trying to tighten up, because we have some individuals that are senior employees, and we certainly don't want to lose their intelligence, and we want to create the system that is going to survive the individuals that are working with it. They've done a great job. In fact, Barb is the one who does our work in that area, and she does a great job setting up the state recoveries. But we just need to make sure that we have some depth there.
Nice. Yeah. Any other questions or comments for Paul? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paul.
Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
And then we have Barb.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good
Barb
morning.
Black, County Auditor. I have a couple of things. The first one is to acknowledge the minutes that were taken from the Board of Appeal and Equalization. I do have to publish them, it's a requirement. So I just want to acknowledge by the group that was in attendance also.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to acknowledge the Board of Appeal and Equalization minutes from June 15th.
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and it has been seconded to approve the minutes of our meeting here the other day. Is there any discussion? Have those letters been sent out?
Yes,
They're
They
sent
sent them
out
out.
quite quickly.
quite quickly, yes. And I know that they were out because one of them was a tax forfeit property and that was delivered to me early last week.
Alrighty.
So the adjustments are made almost right away. And then we have to report those forms that we signed to the state, and also we are required to publish this for public knowledge.
Very good. And the individuals seemed,
I don't get the flashback from them, that's more the assessor's office, so I suppose we could ask. I didn't hear of any issues afterwards when we were, when I was taking it up and comparing notes to be sure that that was what was put in the system.
so I was wondering if everything is okay, or will there be?
Well, and their next step is tax court.
They can,
So, if they're not happy with our process, tax court is their option.
there's another level that these folks could address. All right. Okay. Any additional questions or discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item I have before you is the privilege which tax forfeited property owners have up until sale of property for a forfeit piece of property that's located at 316 Swift Avenue South. A little background on that property is we did give a notice of expiration of redemption. That means that is your final notice saying we're taking the next steps following that 60-day period of time. Peter Simpson is the owner of this property, and it is rented by an individual here in Litchfield. The auditor's office proceeded with the certificate of forfeiture, mailed that notice, and had that served on the home by the sheriff's department, which made this very real and brought things to light. This home is occupied, and with the COVID restrictions, cannot remove that particular individual, even for non-payment of rent. So on Monday the 28th, the auditor's office became aware of additional data regarding Peter, the owner of that property. We put two and two together and found that name on another property, ended up getting a phone number, and were able to work with Kyle and Crystal Green. And these are people that we work with, so sincere individuals here in our community. Mr. Green had power of attorney at one point due to a stroke situation, and was again granted power of attorney. So he is the one making this application, and I spoke with him again this morning. The property owner has a privilege of submitting a written application. That application stayed in my possession after reviewing it with both Andrew and Matt. There was information in that I didn't feel was general public. Each of you could stop and see that application if you wish. So I am asking you, the county board has the authority and responsibility to approve or disapprove this request based on two different items. The county board determines that undue hardship or injustice resulted from the tax forfeiture and will be corrected by a repurchase. And I truly believe that that's sincere. And then the county board determines the repurchase is in the best interest of the public. And that also would be so because if we were to take possession and work with the state of Minnesota, we would incur quite a bit of cost to clean it up and to, remarket it through the forfeit process. They have made a commitment to make the payment of the taxes, including the second half of 2021, and also those fees that bring it back into their name, because currently it's in the state of Minnesota. And that total is $5,693.75. So I am asking that the county board grant this repurchase and also ask that payment be made on or before July 15th, giving them a time frame to work within.
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the right to repurchase the property submitted by Kyle Green on behalf of Peter Simpson at 316 Swift Avenue South. And a repurchase price of $5,693.75. Is that correct, Barb?
That's correct.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Is there any additional discussion or questions for Barb about this situation?
So,
Go ahead.
so the approximately $5,700 makes the county whole through the end of 2021.
Correct.
So I have a couple questions about how we got here. If you can answer.
Sure.
So if I own a rental, which I happen to own, I know when the taxes are due.
Correct.
I know that if I don't pay the taxes, this is gonna happen.
Correct.
So sometimes I think COVID is an excuse for a lot of bad behavior. And what bothers me about this is that's what I'm kinda seeing here. We don't do a lot of these. And also, if somebody has a power of attorney, which I also have you have a responsibility to see that these things are taken care of. So to come in here at this late date, when you have a house that's rented, that's this isn't a house that somebody was living in, it's a rental. And you know when your taxes and insurance are due.
So let me update you a little bit. This individual had power of attorney that lapsed and then regained power of attorney again just in early, when we started to do this. So he let his power of attorney lapse. He had power of attorney in 19 and then for 1 year and let it lapse. He also has done a notice of inspection on this home, and if you want to stop by, there's some, things that I'm not gonna bring publicly to reasons why that home is occupied as it is. The unfortunate part with forfeit, and that's why you're seeing me come with these repurchases probably more than I'd ever want to, is we mail a lot of mail. And it seems to not become real till we pound that notice on the door that said it's no longer yours. And that's when they find the money or they find the way to repurchase it. And, I think I've done 5 or 6 in the last 3-4 years. And it's not like we haven't told them. You get your notice in January, you get notices continually.
But the
You get your
difference is,
notices.
Barb, this is a rental home. So
Right.
there's certain things when you have a rental home that
You should be
you
doing.
have to do.
And this individual's not here. He takes
Right,
mail
so
in
who was
Atwater.
getting his mail?
He lives in Missouri.
Who's getting his mail?
This Kyle Green.
I thought the power of attorney lapsed, but
He
was
did, but he still
getting it?
continues to take his mail because I asked those questions. We sent a certified letter out along the way and I said, how can you pick up a certified piece of mail? And this is why I went to the attorney and also discussed it with Andrew. How do you pick up someone's mail and sign for it when it is a certified letter?
Exactly.
And we, when we looked at how we sent it out, we sent it to his name, but not on.
To whose name?
On Simpson's, to his Atwater post office box. And we have a certificate of retrieving that particular piece of certified mail. We also mail them first class, and it goes to Atwater. Why he has an Atwater mail address and has his mail picked up and sent to him in Missouri, I didn't ask all those questions.
Well, none of those things are really our problem.
No,
To tell you the truth.
exactly.
I mean, this
But-
just
but we
looks
just looked
funny
at-
to me.
We sorted it out, and I know each one of these gives me a
Well,
bad
where are we gonna
taste.
draw the line then?
I really feel that this is a good, sincere one, but I do understand what you're saying, Beth, because why is it that when we mail a notice in January, we certify mail, we put notices on the door, we serve it by the sheriff, why is it that the last notice that says it is now forfeited brings them in a week or two later, and it does. I've done it, like
Very
I said,
much,
5 or
well,
6
those,
times.
some of those people are habitual and that's how they operate, and I get that. They're gonna wait till the very end and then they're gonna bring in a lump sum of money and pay all those penalties and that's fine.
But it's beyond the
But
end.
this looks to me very much like this guy wasn't getting his rent, which happens to all of us. So he decided not to pay the property taxes. But when you go that long without doing it, to me, there's some more questions here. And I'm usually pretty soft-hearted about this stuff, but this one doesn't seem, something doesn't seem right to me here.
We did also explore the movement of this property in the last 20 years, and the current renter was in the ownership link for a period of time on a contract for deed and did not pay, and so it was pulled back. So Mr. Simpson has had it for a number of years, you know, and was not in the original link. It brought a lot of things to mind, and that's, you know, I am bringing it to you. You do have the privilege to approve or deny based on, or you could table it and ask me to, you know, have you review the confidential data that both Matt and Andrew felt that I probably should keep in my office. It had some details regarding the renter that I didn't think were fair and public.
This one, what I took out of this one, I mean, I think as long as they're coming with the funds and they've got till July 15th, I'm giving benefit of doubt based on the stroke and some of the underlying situations there. But if it happens again, I'm gonna be less compassionate.
This one is under the radar.
I mean,
of the
and I'm
city.
going by your guidance that
Right.
you feel it's a
This one is
sincere.
what?
This one is under the city's radar for non-compliance of the yard. And when I first obtained this one on June 7th, which was, I drove past and it was remarkable what I saw compared to what I probably would have seen a month ago. You know, there's some good faith effort being made there. But, you know, individuals come on hardship, and this one, as we explored it, I mean, like every story I come to tell you on repurchase. I mean, they become a story, and it's whether it's in our best interest of the county, because then we don't have the expense going forward, and I get that. Or whether you deem that what I'm presenting is a hardship for, or was a hardship for that individual. Those are your two
Because
criteria.
many of the ones that we get back, we end up cleaning up in full 9 yards, so they're cleaning it and come up with a good,
Well,
bring it.
I think the city of
Team.
Litchfield needs to stay behind their process also. I mean, I don't think they should ever let them get to that point, because, you know, they get some pretty bad ones in town.
I
This one
agree,
was
but
nicely
I'm
moved.
saying if we, usually when we get them,
They're
it's,
really bad
there's
ones.
no effort been
That's
made.
correct.
So
That's
there is some effort.
There is effort being made. I drove past it specifically. When I bring it to Corey for insurance, I go take a look at what I'm bringing over there.
So you said, if we don't accept this, you said there'd be state costs and other costs,
It's owned by the state.
ballpark figure.
It's owned by the state. We forfeit this dollar amount, no collection period. We turn around and either, at some point, remove the present renter and/or we have sold some property with the renter in it on a tax forfeit sale. Those are usually less favorable because you don't know what's going to happen, or the saleability is more difficult. We clean them up, demo the building. You know, we could incur, the last demo I did was 10,000.
That, however, is not a reason to do this. This has gotta be a hardship. You can't, we're not supposed to consider that, I don't believe.
Well, if it's in the best
Because if we're gonna do that,
interest,
Barb, then we're gonna do that with everyone, aren't we?
right? But it would serve a public interest because we're not paying taxpayer dollars, so there, I do say that, I see what you're saying, but I do see that it would be a
I see
public
more of
interest.
these now than I've seen
I have to,
lately, and I'm sure you have too, but
no, it's unfortunate, once
if we're
they.
gonna make this policy, then we're just gonna let everybody pay whenever they want to, and then come in, you know, in the ninth inning and say, now I'm gonna pay. Now all of a sudden I have the money to pay, but I didn't have it 4 or 5 years, however many years ago it was. It just seems fishy to me. I mean, I'm not gonna go to the man about it.
Right.
If it's the will of this board to pass it, that's fine. I'm gonna vote no, but that's just fine. We don't
But
have-
in our tax forfeit guides and part of statute, there is a county board approval when the taxpayer does not have, does have a right, or the property owner or taxpayer does not have a right to repurchase, they have a privilege to submit an application, which is what you're saying, Beth. And the county board's approval is given only if at least one of the following conditions is determined to be true. The county board determines that undue hardship or injustice resulting from the tax forfeiture will be corrected by the repurchase, or the second one, the county board determines the repurchase will serve the public interest. You know, so it's, once they let them go, and, you know, unfortunately, these people did actually send money, a week ago Friday, but because it was tax forfeited, you can't pay on tax forfeited property. You know, so it was a week too late.
Did they send the whole $5,000?
They sent the, taxes due up to that point, and not the extra interest that was occurred. They took it to the, to our notice of expiration, so there was dollars missing.
$5,100.
So there was dollars missing. But it
Again,
is-
I just go back to me, they're making good faith, and from here we take it. I mean, they're good till next year, and if they have recurring problems, number one, the city needs to monitor that piece of the cleanup, or the
Should.
property, and we'll monitor whether they pay their bill or not.
Well, now they cannot pay for how much time again before
They only get, I put in here to give them till the 15th.
Right, but then that
This-
starts up again, so then they can go how long before we?
Oh, 3 years, fourth one in, forfeiture process, and that does happen.
Yep.
What is the ruling now with eviction of renters, now that the emergency thing, Minnesota, isn't that all
There's a
gone now?
moratorium. Well, no, you cannot evict anyone.
Right.
There's a moratorium, they can, when the state decides you can collect rent, they have to, then you're gonna have to go back to court to try to get the money, and you're probably never, how are you gonna get it? I mean, every month that goes by, it's.
So the eviction moratorium has been ramped down over the next year. I believe over the first month or so, there's going to be, the folks who've been the bad actors, who've intentionally not been paying, have indicated that the fact that I just wanna live for free, those folks
Sure.
can start to be evicted, and then
They don't even
There's a
ask them
process
if they're
beyond
working. They just say you don't have to pay, so some people choose not to pay.
Yeah.
And in their mind, maybe they think they never have to pay, which probably is how it'll turn out, because you go to court, and by the time you're done with that,
Because wasn't there a date, like, you can't evict someone starting the 1st of November until the 15th of April or something? That happens every
That's
year?
that cold weather thing.
It's a
I don't
cold
even
weather.
think that's absolutely true. I think I read about that. There's a little more to that than people know, but. These people obviously have chosen. I mean, this COVID thing just went into effect now, so it sounds to me like there was some issues with.
I think there was
Airbnb
issues.
For a long time, so somebody should have done their due diligence and gotten the people out of there. But
I do have a letter that was sent to me this morning by Kyle showing in 2019 an attempt to work with the tenant. And again, that didn't go real smooth.
Well, and hopefully, I guess this would be a position I would look, for them to look into, Mr. Simpson, with health issues and living out of state, perhaps now that property's up to speed, that perhaps now would be a great time for him to sell it. And maybe.
And probably not a contract for
And that would
vehicles,
help
like
us.
get them totally
That'd
out of
help.
it.
That'd be a benefit for everybody, I think.
And like I said, I have not spoken with him, I've only worked with, Kyle in person and via email several times.
And hopefully not to the tenant.
No, I have not spoken to the
But
tenant.
that's out of our control. But I think as long as they're coming with the
He
money,
did come
take
to
it
the
forward.
courthouse, so we did have a conversation with him.
And we deal with these as a board individually, everyone on its own merits, correct? We have no policy other than the rules that are in the statutes.
Correct.
So no matter how we decide, we're not gonna create policy.
Correct.
And I'm bringing it with the guidance of the statute. And the guidance of the statute, even if I were to have a property up for sale in the sale process and cleaned by our county fund, they still could repurchase within 1 year, right up to sale date. So if I were to be selling this in November and we had cleaned the property, we could still come and ask for that privilege.
And then
But you would grant it or not,
it
but
still comes before this board though.
correct. But they still have that
So if we
privilege
say no today, we can say no a year from now too.
up to a year.
And then any costs that we would incur cleaning it up would be a part of that sale price?
That's correct, that we would reinstate all the canceled specials and reinstate,
Fees and everything.
fees. And also demo. In one case, the repurchase that Beth is remembering, we started to clean the property because it was in need, and so we had done some work on the outside. They had to pay that in order to be granted the repurchase.
We've also had some come before us that they were all good with it till they found a way to sell it to somebody for more money.
Yep.
These can turn messy is my point, and I think, and I'm not doubting Barb, to me, this just doesn't smell right, but that's just me, I'm just one person, so it's up to you guys.
I'm wondering about the competency of Mr. Simpson, if he's allowing this person who had power of attorney and then lost it and then got it again, and
Can I read part of that? Brandy is
I just am
asking me to do
I'm
it.
concerned about the welfare of Mr. Simpson and
Sure.
who truly is
Sure.
making.
So on August 24th of 2019, Peter Simpson suffered a stroke. After minor recovery, he had authorized Mr. Green, me, who's writing this, to represent him as a power of attorney at the home of 316 Swift property in Litchfield. Power of attorney was to take effect for a period of 1 year while Mr. Simpson continued his recovery.
Okay.
Mr. Simpson is no longer a Minnesota resident, so he is delayed in receiving his mail, which is another reason he appointed me as power of attorney. During the winter of 2019, I, along with the home inspector, and I'm gonna miss reading some things purposely, went to the Swift property to inspect it due to several letters received from the city of Litchfield. The occupant refused to let us inspect the interior of the home. During the recent instance, Mr. Simpson again authorized power of attorney in this matter. The county has the legal file on document, a document on file. We did receive a power of attorney that was reinstated, based on, for the purpose of representing me in any and all aspects concerning occupancy, use, or sale of the single-family home, which I currently own in Meeker County, described at 316 Swift Avenue South. This specific power of attorney shall commence on June 29th, the day that we were having all the conversations. So he has reinstated the power of attorney, and it shall expire until, not expire this time until the home is sold.
So there is intent in that letter, I'm reading it, there's intent to sell, which is
Correct.
in our best interest, not to have to go down.
I can further
Plus
go
costs,
on.
as long as they're paying the bills and the costs are incurred by them, and they can sell it and do whatever, we're
I can-
happy.
I can further state here, omitting a paragraph on purpose here, and then going to Mr. Simpson paid the property tax in full, including the 2021. However, due to misinformation that was later clarified by Barb Locke in the auditor's office, the payment was declined. You can't pay on forfeit property without going through this process. Mr. Simpson is willing, ready, and able to pay the property tax and the additional recording fees at this time. And I do believe, eye to eye with, Mr. Green that is going to happen. So those are pieces that I didn't put in the public because there are pieces that I left out in my reading.
Barb, did you have any discussions with the city, just finding out if they're gonna continue the cleanup process and
The only discussion I had with the city was to call to find out who the individual was who was paying on the utility. And they told me that was the renter. And that is as far as they would give me information.
So we had one here a couple of years ago, a person that came in that I voted for her to get, felt bad for her. Who had some issues, I believe, with hoarding. And that was gonna be taken care of, and I drive by that property and nothing's.
It's
changed.
awful.
Absolutely
Absolutely awful.
nothing has changed. She's still in there doing the same thing, so that's why I get a little bit skeptical,
Right.
so.
No, I agree.
But I'll call for that.
We've also had some that were that seem to be scamming, I mean, I've
I've
we've
seen
had
both.
different ones, just we have.
However, it's interesting to me that he did try to make the payment when he figured it out, but you had to reject it because it wasn't the right amount of money. So
Right,
there's
because it's recorded with the
but
recorder's
that's
office.
still
that
a
they-
long time to go.
That's correct.
And not anything against Mr. Green, but, if I was power of attorney and something just slipped, I would still be probably trying to, there must be a connection between the two of them.
The connection we found between the two of them would be identified in public records, so I believe I can share it, and that is that Mr. Simpson has other property in Meeker County to which the Greens are involved with.
So,
Mhm.
just doesn't,
So who pays the taxes then?
well, I don't know.
Is this Mr. Green completely in charge of all the properties and paying the
I
taxes?
don't believe so, because we have, but that's our connection with the other property is, late this. The unfortunate piece is when we give the 60-day notice, that's just another notice to them. When they sometimes call or we connect with them, it's like, oh, that pile of mail. Sometimes that pile of mail should be
But
open.
Barb,
Yeah.
And I
when you
get it.
do your taxes, I'm screwed to find things that I paid on that rental,
Correct.
so.
It should be opening.
It would certainly stand out to me the first year of the taxes, or the second. So,
Or even being noticed that it was
right,
going to.
so maybe that's why I find this, it's fine, I get it, they want to pay and that's fine.
This is one of the
That's my
jobs of our
question.
office that's not very pretty.
Why I asked.
And I did work both with Andrew and Matt just because there were things along the way that I wanted to have another opinion or to have them direct me back to my office or forward if it was kosher.
Well, we'll find out in 9 days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're gambling with 9 days here. If they don't pay it, then we go.
Well, they say they're gonna pay it, they're
Yeah.
gonna try to pay it, so.
So I mean, I think it's step one.
Any additional questions, comments for Barb? We have the motion, it has been seconded, it has been discussed. We will now take the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Bye.
Motion carried.
Okay, then I believe on the agenda, the next item is my ditches, correct? We can do
Yes.
ditches, okay.
Yeah.
So, before you was a request for both loans and repayments. In the May settlement, we were able to retire some loans that we did, the assessments for, along with the prepaid that the taxpayers had done. So, at this point, there's a listing of ditches to have, payments made back to retire either portions or all of their loan. And then to turn around, due to recent completion of tree removal, cleaning, erosion repairs, there's numerous different things. I'm asking for some new loans for those systems. Those systems are different than the ones, obviously, that I'm asking for payment. It will increase the loan balance with the county until we have an opportunity to either, bill, which we normally do in November. We may do one midterm billing shortly because it's a large one and it needs to be done. And then also we will have the second half taxes, but remember, most of these are A, and we won't see that till November. So my account would be in the red for too long.
Are you still getting a lot of people when they get an assessment that come in and pay cash like they were a few years ago? Is that kind
I
of
don't
cut
know
down?
that we see cash as much. We see, their payment checks.
That's what I mean,
Okay,
but
yeah.
they pay it
Oh,
off.
absolutely, absolutely.
Instead of-
77% of those that were 1 year were paid up current. Those that were extended over multiple years, because remember, we had some fairly large ones, that was less. Right, so more often than not, I'm even asked for those bills because they want them in their, hands for this current year rather than to wait until 2022 as an expense, farm expense. So I do like to have two different motions, if you would please. One to make the payments, and the other one to approve the new loans so that they're trackable in the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve repayment of loans from the ditch fund to the revenue fund in the amount of $49,800 plus $2,332 accumulated interest for ditch 81532 and judicial ditch 18 and judicial ditch 29. And judicial 29, lateral B, and judicial 52.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
I think you,
Yeah.
I think you asked one.
Yeah. Are you sure about that, Paul?
You had to take a breath.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. We have a motion to approve this repayment, and I believe we received a second. Did Steve?
Yes.
Did you second that? Thank you. Any discussion on what Paul just said?
Some of these are retired. I mean, some of these ditches
Yes.
are gonna be paid off then.
Right, you see on the left on that chart, that I was able to fully pay, I think maybe one or two and not all of them. though. Some of them are just still ticking away.
All right, disregard the question. I didn't look up at the screen.
That's okay.
It's on-
Took me a while.
It's in the packet.
It's on the flip side.
Took me a while to play bingo
on the
with this
flip
one,
side.
Steve, so I believe I'm
Yeah,
right.
it's sometimes hard to read our screen.
No, that's okay.
Okay, any additional questions or discussion on our first motion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? First motion carries.
Now, does somebody want to read the second?
I'll-
There we go.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the loans from the revenue fund to the ditch fund for County 12, 18, 26, judicial 1, Rep F, and judicial 17 at 2% interest.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion or questions on the second motion? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Second motion carried.
I'm hoping that this will be the last time I visit for loans until late fall, but in talking to John, that may not be the case. You might see me again before the end of the year. The next item is the payables, which went out, and then with the hospital, I got that identified, so Julie will have that later.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the hospital, county and hospital accounts payable.
We have a motion to approve accounts payable. We've had a chance to look that over. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Barb, I had a question, and I think should ask you earlier, I apologize, but, Forest City, and I'm assuming there was some, dust control, and actually Phil is here, so dust control over on the gravel over there, there's a couple payments to Forest City, and I'm assuming that has to do with our landfill.
That's correct. I looked that up, Paul asked that same question, and we do that annually according to the payables, and Phil might be able to jet in. Annually, we take care of the application or a portion of that. And it's paid from the landfill account. If you looked at it, it's a 17, so it's a landfill.
Okay, I was just, what caught my eye was the general, coming out of general.
No, it's not. It was Fund 17. It's the
All right.
landfill account.
I think we've done that annually for a while because
Yeah.
of some
Back, there was some
complaints out
annual,
there.
right.
Yeah,
I looked back 20 and 19 when Paul asked the question, and I saw both of those years. I didn't go further back.
Thank you for responding to those. I still, that one that sticks with me is that Motorola. Two exact.
We
like,
should
you said,
ask.
they have two different invoices.
It has two different invoices, the numbers are on there, there's two specific different invoices, so it's my assumption that they're separate lines, but we could certainly, ask that question of the sheriff's department.
Might not hurt to verify.
Okay.
'Cause it's just odd that it was,
On the same bill, and that they didn't combine them,
yeah.
might be for inventory purposes too, but we can ask. It does look different, but very definitely, it's a succession of invoice numbers, I looked at that when you asked it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm curious what we're towing. Have we been breaking down, or I saw bills for big tow and something else in there?
Recently?
Well, I mean, it was in this month's bills, I think.
Yeah, there was a tow,
see 'em?
it could be a squad car too.
Oh, I just think of you right away.
Jumping into my head.
Should ask the sheriff.
Right, if you have the bills open, what's the
Let's see it.
code number? Is it a
Uh,
10 or is it
it's
an
not-
01?
It's an 01-201,
201 would be sheriff's
It
department.
is sheriff, I didn't have my chart.
201 is sheriff's.
so it's,
Sorry.
it's probably,
Didn't know what was
There was-
happening in your backyard.
The oddest one that I saw is Litchfield Dental.
I think that's a 201, I also saw that one.
It must have been injured.
It's a
So
201.
I wonder, is that a charge for if they pick somebody up and tow the cars?
Yeah.
Then we pay that and then it gets
They
billed
prob-
back
they'd
to the
probably get-
offender?
yeah, as part of the,
I didn't even think about
restitution
that, I
costs.
just
Could be
blamed it
that,
on
too.
Phil right away.
Poor Phil.
But the dental one I looked, that's a 201.
Okay,
It's sheriff's department.
so that could be
Okay, thank you.
somebody wanted to get out of jail really bad.
Yeah.
Good dentist.
I knew
yeah.
After the toothache I had this weekend, I probably want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it just was
Simple
odd.
extraction.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Not yet.
Oh, great.
I think we have to vote on that, council.
I think so. Any other discussion? We have a motion, it's been seconded, we've had discussion. Anything further? Then we will take the vote. All those in favor of accounts payable, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
One last note for the board, we will at the next meeting be looking at an appointment to the Clearwater Watershed Board, and you did see some applications come through. I think at some point in your discussion, after this meeting or committee updates, you might want to discuss, those applications or, those appointments.
Very good. Thank you, Barb.
And we'll leave these with you, Julian, and an application for us to sign later, so.
All right, thank you. All on my little green clipboard here. All right.
I got it on there, Phil.
Hey,
Thank you.
Phil, good morning.
Don't worry.
I failed to get him what he needed
It's all in.
as soon as I was hoping,
Uh-oh.
but it's on there, great. So I'm here to discuss Big Swan Outlet Culvert. This is a long-term thing. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. I know Danny and I have spoken about it a little bit. Phil Schmalz, Public Works Director.
It's been a discussion for a long time with this board, I know that.
Decades, as far as I can
Well,
tell.
it's before me, but I recall the discussion.
So I'll just pull up GeoMoose to speak and to show you where this culvert is. It's the outlet of Big Swan Lake on Cassat 21. I think it'd be in Kingston Township, the southern portion of Kingston Township. It's going on my screen.
Oh, you know why? Then, do me a favor, end the slideshow.
Okay.
So we gotta put a cattle pass in
Yeah.
Trouble with my
No.
A little dry right now. It's a little dry right now, maybe.
Yeah, you won't need any cattle pass. They pass through everything now.
Putting a fence where you have it.
Oh, I know, that's what we were doing all weekend.
We had hope.
Yeah.
So we're up in this part of the county. So this lake, there's actually a judicial ditch, I think it's ditch 3, that feeds in the south. That's the inlet. Outlet of the lake is up here. Feeds into what I think they still call Collinwood Creek here. And then this is the North Fork of the Crow. The backwaters or the flood stage of the North Fork of the Crow does impact the lake levels. The underlying issue with the lake and the Lake Association, what I'll get into a little bit, is the fluctuation. The water level on this lake fluctuates. It's up to 8 or 10 feet per year, and for people trying to utilize boats, boat lifts, docks, that's a problem. So kind of the focus, what the focus has been, is trying to somewhat control lake levels. And now that this culvert is nearing the end of its useful life, it's on the replacement list, it's something we're hoping to address, decide if we want to install a weir here or if we do not. That's what I'm here to discuss. How do I get back to the slideshow?
Just minimize that
Oh.
on top. Or, yeah.
In the right place. So, Bridge 92554, that's officially what that culvert's called, installed in 1969. Sufficiency rating, that's something we come up with based on our annual inspection program of all of our bridge structures. It's 69.1. Once it falls below an 85, it's structurally deficient and eligible for state bridge bond funding. This project, we have plans complete and funding in place for, from the state for bridge bonds. It pays for about half of the project. The rest we take out of our state aid funds. So when I talk about a weir, that's a picture of what we're talking about. The replacement culvert would be about a 12-foot wide, or it would be a 12-foot wide, 7-foot tall rectangular box culvert. And the weir would be kind of like you see here, this bottom of the culvert, this new culvert would be the same as what's there today. And then an artificially raised inlet of the culvert is what we're talking about when we say weir. So this can be attached to a box culvert. The 2.2 feet was come up through a variety of studies that have been done through the DNR and consultants, mainly pushed forward through Big Swan Lake Association. That's the group who's mainly been working on this weir project for decades. I know Commissioner Hausman's been heavily involved, and his predecessor was involved. There's been a lot of discussion in the past. I won't go through all this, but this is a history of what we have for documentation. 2004, DNR completed an outlet analysis. There was work before that, but that's when things really started to kinda come together. I won't read through all of this. Bolton and Mank, a consultant engineer, did a hydraulic study somewhere along the way. 2015, the DNR was thinking maybe we could install a 2 to 4 foot weir. What they're looking at is they don't want to negatively affect that judicial ditch upstream, and they have to look at potential impacts of properties on the lake as well. And they do consider the outlet, because that flow characteristics would change if you put in a weir.
So, not to interrupt you, but, so they're saying they'll send too much water into the ditch, or, I've never quite understood. Does the water come over the road at times?
No, I don't think it ever has. The concern is mainly with the Big Swan Lake Association trying to reduce how much fluctuation they have on their lake shore.
So it gets real high or real low?
Correct.
So I understood that part, so this weir would be so more water goes through when it's higher? Or
It would
I've
reduce-
never quite understood all this.
It would reduce the capacity of the outlet as the water starts to get low. So as you approach that 2.2 feet above the bottom of the culvert,
Okay.
your outlet would slow down.
Oh, okay.
So basically just propping up the low end of the lake. That's the idea.
So it varies what it does.
You'd be raising the lake level 2 to 4 feet.
4 feet?
Well, with 2.2 feet, yeah, I'd say you could call it 2.2 feet. But if you go out there today, it's not a dry culvert. So would you get a full 2 feet out of it? I don't know. And as you approach that 2.2 feet, your capacity reduces too. So I mean, if I was gonna put a number on it, I'd say a foot and a half, maybe better than what you have today in
And
general.
so what can the effect be on the ditch that the DNR is working on?
Obstructing flow. Upstream, you're talking? Yeah, they didn't wanna set this too high where that would potentially obstruct flow on the judicial ditch. So second slide of history, 2018, that's when I jumped in here. Bolton and Mink was just finishing up a second hydraulic study. Then shortly thereafter, the DNR came back recommending a 2.2 foot high weir, saying that may be permissible. Any change here has to be permitted through the DNR. They control water elevations. 2020, we finished up our construction plans. Then this spring, MnDOT authorized bridge bond funds. And I did have a meeting with Big Swan Lake Association to show them where we're at. Today, there's kind of two outstanding issues. It's the permit from the DNR. I've been told it will be signed as we submitted it, but it's not been signed. Without a permit, we can't do anything. And then right-of-way acquisition. The property owner, there, I just kind of restate that. The property owner of, well, I think the property owner of the parcel that we would need to impact by right-of-way from to replace the culvert is pretty strongly against the weir. They're concerned about downstream impacts. They've had a number of questions for me, and I answered them. They have a number of questions for the DNR. Haven't had much success getting satisfying responses, the way it sounds. So what I've been told is if we remove the weir from our proposed culvert replacement, this property owner would be willing to sign an easement to let us do the work. As long as the weir is part of the project, they will not sign an easement document. So I think that gives us three options that I laid out here. Option A would be like we do anytime we have a property owner unwilling to sell right away for a road or a culvert. We could go down the road of eminent domain condemnation, take property rights. Option B, we pull the weir out of the project. Like I said, the weir is mainly for Big Swan Lake residents. The Lake Association wants it. As far as the highway is concerned, I don't see any impact to the highway, good or bad, having a weir. The culvert needs to be replaced. That's what I'm trying to do. And option C, which this is a little bit new to me, and that's why I had Chuck from North Star County Surveyor come along. So option C says we could claim that the property affected by this culvert replacement is part of the original US government survey and identified as a meandered lake bottom, meaning it's a lake. It's not private property. They don't have the property rights that we've maybe assumed that they do. This is just an image of the original USGS survey. So look at that north end, how it flattens out and then enters what I would call Collinwood Creek on the outlet. Here's maybe a better image of that. The lighter line is that north
I
end.
printed it out and highlighted it.
Yeah, that might be easier.
From the edge of the blacktop to the meander line is approximately 100.
So this is the original US.
Yep, that's the original government survey line there. It's approximately 100.
And this
So technically, you know, there's
person
a very-
objecting it resides here. Those are theirs.
Oh, you're saying he doesn't have say on this.
No, that would be actually federal bill.
Which, yeah,
So this northern line, oh, I lost it.
no, I see that, but which property owner or what parcel?
So
That guy right there.
the parcel on the north side of the road, their parcel lines extend south across the road. So we're dealing with one property owner.
Okay.
But if you would use this USGS survey argument that the lake bottom is this line, then our entire project would fall within meandered lake bed.
So if you wanted to go the route to, you know, there's you hear the ordinary high water, the ordinary low water. And so I just printed out basically, here's a simple thing from the Minnesota DNR. When a water basin or water course is navigable, the state of Minnesota owns the bed below the natural ordinary low water level. So if you figured the low water, that would be the limits of the state rights, or you know, of that landowner's rights around that lake. It wouldn't necessarily be that line. It would be wherever the low water is here
If you
and
wanna-
here.
If you wanna.
So yeah, or I can
Screen
use
behind
this.
it.
So yeah, so
Wow.
wherever the ordinary low water would be along here and along here, which along here, you know, it's gonna follow that slough way back. It's gonna follow basically that. So obviously a culvert's gonna be below the low water. I mean, so it's not gonna be an issue in there where the low water would be. And as far as what you were saying, the 10 feet, I have the actual highest and lowest known. So the highest recorded elevation is 1007.3 and the lowest is 997.3 basically. So there is a 10-foot high and low, and that's because of the backfill. Crow River floods, Big Swan floods.
So this individual who's objecting, has he furnished any documentation to support his belief that it's gonna hurt?
No documentation. He's basically stated that the studies that have been done haven't adequately considered his property.
So if the DNR is located, they've considered all of that, haven't they?
Yeah, but they haven't signed the permit. I'm expecting them to.
Are you saying you're skeptical?
Well, this is what I was pulling out of it. We've got the north fork of the Crow, and we've got the DNR, and neither one of them want to touch it. And that's, I mean, your problem, you figure it out. Is that kind of what they're telling you?
The DNR's been heavily involved.
Yeah.
They've kind of been helping the
All
Lake
to the
Association.
point of not signing the permit.
Well,
Aren't they signing the permit?
internal
For us?
internal struggles basically is what they're saying. There's not an issue with this, it's an issue with their process. It's just getting the actual document signed based on who needs to review it and who's involved.
Is that property owner, is his concern if you put the weir in there and you get a backwaters from the Crow, it's gonna elevate, it works in reverse osmosis then? I mean, he's gonna have an extra foot of water, is that?
That's the smaller of his concerns. His greater
Okay.
concern is actually that the flow out of the lake will dry up, causing his stream to quit flowing. I'm not a hydraulics engineer, so I guess I won't give a formal opinion on that. I don't think the concern is, I wouldn't be as concerned about it, but I didn't do the hydraulic studies. I'm not a hydraulic engineer.
Is Ethan the hydrologist for the DNR?
He doesn't sign it himself, though. It has to,
He's done the research.
he's been the one involved as long as I've been here, yeah.
And I would take it if we put in the structure without the weir, in the hopes of being able to put in a weir at some point.
You could. That would be an approach,
But
the way
realistically, will that ever happen?
you would still need property rights, potentially, unless we wanted to explore the meandered lake bottom concept. And that's the reason I brought North Star here. I've never gone that route, and I would say if we wanted to work that, we would probably get a real estate attorney involved to help us through it. I'm used to buying easements, so the fact we may not need to, that's a new concept to me.
Is
That
there
was
something
concern.
this landowner needs more of to convince him? I mean, or
Maybe.
is there no convincing him?
I'd say maybe. What he wants to see is a signed DNR permit, and then he still has a list of questions for the DNR that he's waiting for answers from. And I know the Lake Association's been working very hard on their end, trying to convince him. I have not been trying to convince him, because I really, like I said, I don't think it serves a purpose to the road. And one thing I should add with those three options that I stated, if we were to go down the road of trying eminent domain, a condemnation process, the first step of that is proving public purpose. Proving public purpose for a road project or a culvert is pretty straightforward. I'm not certain about proving public purpose for a weir.
It only benefits the lake.
Yep. So,
It works, if you're getting backflow through the Crow, though, I don't know if you wanna use the word benefit, but it affects the, going the outlet too. I mean, if that's backwatering and you have a 2 foot, now it's a dam pushing back, that's gonna raise their levels too.
one thing I should point out too is the overall capacity of the crossing when the water is elevated will be the same or better than what we have today. It's just that low flows, it'll be reduced.
Yeah.
So if you look at the weir, there's a reason that it sticks out and it's not just across the front. You keep that perimeter of flow available so that you can utilize the full opening of culvert when the water's high. So,
Annie, is this your area?
Yeah. I learned. Yeah, I'm letting him talk his course first.
I think it's
I heard it's in.
1,000.2,
or no, it's 1,000. I think it's 1,000 even is the
the top of the weir.
top of the weir that is proposed.
So there would still be, as of April 21st, there'd still be 2 feet of water going over that. The last lake reading on the DNR's website was 1,001.9.
Okay.
So if the top of the weir is at 1,000, it would still have.
So it's not a dry culvert right now.
No.
I don't know.
What's in, what is that culvert that's in there?
It's a concrete arch pipe. I don't know the height, but it's about 14 feet wide.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't tied, as many culverts back in that day, they put in concrete pipe, which is great, but if you don't tie the joints with steel, they start to separate and move. And that's when they need to be replaced.
You never can change the diameter of the culvert to let less out because you need it for the max, right? That's why
Right.
you don't go that route.
Right, and the size of the culvert we're putting in is similar to what's there today, just different shape. And then, said at high levels, the capacity is still available, but at low levels, then the weir would restrict flow. That's the concept.
So maybe my concern about backwaters at a crow is a minimal impact.
At high levels, it should be no impact. At low levels, it'll be different, yeah.
Different, but not substantial. If there's water in the pipe right now,
Right.
it's dry right now.
And I don't need a motion or a vote today, I just wanted to have this discussion with you to kinda feel out where I think, or where you think we should go with this. My next steps for me is I've been told I'll have a signed DNR permit by the end of July. Hoping that happens.
Takes quite a while to put your name on a document.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that happens, that's one of the property owner's big concerns. Once the DNR signs that permit, they're signing off on a lot of those questions that he's asked. We'll see if that influences his mindset.
How
If
soon
not-
do you wanna do this project?
This fall. And that's why I didn't wanna wait to bring the topic up, because time is running short to get it advertised and completed. We have a 2022 reclaim project on that road. We could do the culvert and the reclaim the same year, but I guarantee you we're gonna have a bump dip. I don't like doing that. I wanna remove the culvert year one, replace the road year two.
I feel like if it's gonna get done, it has to get done with, if we just do a culvert, it's not gonna ever get done. Cause this has been a discussion for, like he said, decades.
Mm-hmm.
And all that study and stuff, I can recall doing that maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Hausman was pretty
I know
involved
we've
in it.
talked about it a couple
So-
times. To me, it's DNR's holding the deck of cards,
Mm-hmm.
or at least ace of spades. So they need it.
For a potential change of 18 inches on the lake. But if they're
Sure.
dropping 8 feet,
Yeah, it's not gonna fix everyone's problems. You're still gonna have fluctuation. It'll prop up the low end of that lake movement.
It'll just keep it from, like you said, going low. It's not gonna keep the 8 foot high, cause it'll still just
Yeah.
backfill over it, so, what was it, 2002 or whenever we got that 14 inches of rain and the lake went up that 8 feet and people's docks, you know, that had their boats anchored to that dock, I remember seeing that on the news,
Their docks are all down by that culvert.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the boats that were tied to the docks sank, and I remember when we got that big storm and when that high came, so yeah, it's not gonna change that, it's just gonna change where that guy's problem would come in is this year, really. You know, how much, if you put that weir in, how much water's gonna go out, is basically his big concern. Which, like, if you look at the weir, what, was that Washington Creek? Right on where you see right off Highway 12, you see there's
Oh,
that
yeah.
concrete.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes water stops going over there, but there's still water in the creek.
And one thing I'll point out too is the costs associated with the studies that have been done and the weir itself. The Big Swan Lake Association has done fundraising to pay for those. We're not using county funds for those features. It's just a tag along on our project. And we would need additional property to fit the weir, that's why I'm here. I can't just buy property for the culvert and slide a weir in there. We need 8 more feet of length.
Is that on the upstream or?
Upstream
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
It's on,
The
which
lake
side of the road is it?
South side,
The lakeside,
yes.
lakeside, yeah.
So I think based on the discussion we've had, I think my next steps, wait for the DNR to sign the permit. And then I think it would be prudent to contact a real estate attorney and get more feedback on our potential options with the meandered lake bottom concept.
Does that open up a can of worms that we don't want to? I mean, then you're getting into the point where where's my property lines? What do I actually own? In all these different deeds and every lake owner. I mean, is that what we're going down? when we go that route? Because that kind of concerns me at time. I can see where it'd solve this problem,
Mhm.
but how many problems would it create down the line where people are like, whoa, like this individual, if you go that route, there's gonna be pushback for sure. Just from,
I'd expect some.
yeah.
Ideally, we'd have full cooperation, everyone on the same page, sign the easement and move on.
So the weir is on Lakeside,
Yes.
and that's where you need the additional
Yep.
property. Who owns that property?
The property on the north, it's
Okay.
one parcel that extends south across the road.
So the property owner does own Lake Shore property.
Up to the shore. That's where the gray area is here. He's just trying to cover all of the bases to make it, cause I brought it up the second you emailed us to write up the extended easement. I was like, well, you're purchasing easement from land that the guy doesn't own. Because
Typically-
even like the eminent domain, you'd have to talk to your attorney, the attorney on that. Your state's taking from the state, I don't know how.
In my mind though, that option is out.
Yeah, cause I don't even think it's valid.
You can't, cause you don't even know the validity of the other side of the impact. Let alone there's an impact.
To me, the bigger impact, or the bigger question would be this side of the road. To me, this side, I'm not an attorney, I wouldn't think the issue with the land ownership there would, you could get into gray area on this side if you're extending that way where the backfill is now. Cause did the road artificially change the shape, now that's considered backflow and this is the lake, you could attorney the heck out of that.
So potentially, when the DNR signs that permit, he may get his questions answered and may be willing to give the easement. Potentially.
I'd say it's not a strong chance, but there's a chance. Based on what I think there's a chance of that.
Okay.
So I think what we've heard is that even pursuing the route of the meandered lake bottom is gonna take time. And as we move closer to fall, the ability for us to get this project underway and the culvert replaced this year becomes more difficult to happen. So I think the question is, do we, as the county, wanna continue to pursue this weir project on behalf of the Lake Association? Or if this property owner is not willing to sign off on this easement, are we willing to say, let's move on with our project alone and go from there? I think that's the big question right now.
Because a weir can be attached at a later date.
Good.
But the project of the culvert should be done for safety reasons and
Yep.
road.
Essentially, the weir part of this project is the county doing a favor to the Lake Association. And it's really not even, Phil is trying to pacify the Lake Association by saying, hey, we're willing to put a weir on there. And it's really not even our part, but we're trying to do it as stewards of the whole, the Lake
Because the
Association, their
project
county.
is,
Right.
However, Danny, by stabilizing the lake level to some degree, you can affect the property values there.
Mhm.
You could raise those property values, which of course, you collect more tax on.
Well, and I think the Lake.
No doubt.
The Lake Association spent some money on this over the years also, so. I mean,
Yep. And I that Steve, the president of the lake, had called me just prior to the thing and stuff, and he said maybe, myself and Phil and I can sit down. I don't know what we're gonna say, because we really need that property owner to basically sign off. And May is optimistic, once the DNR signs off. That, the term may is kinda optimistic from what Phil's dealt with. Have you actually been able to, has he actually called you yet, so you
I
could,
talked to him again last week.
oh,
Yes.
okay,
And his stance is the same, he's got outstanding questions for the DNR, and as long as there's an unsigned permit and his questions are unanswered, he will not sign a easement that includes weir on our project.
Well, should we proceed and wait and see what happens if the DNR signs the permit, start with that, and then see what happens
We can.
with the
How's
questions
it,
after that?
yeah,
But
how's your
with the
time?
end result being maybe we just go ahead and do the culvert.
How's your time? I mean, is
Working it
that
backwards.
July? I mean, are you okay?
I think if we're not advertising this project in September,
Oh,
it's not happening. And that's getting late, but I think we could still fit it in. A project like this can be done in a week. I'd give it 2 or 3 weeks. But it's a pretty quick deal to put in a box culvert like this.
Well, so let's see what we hear from the DNR.
So
Yeah,
we're
I-
okay, that's what my question,
Yep.
we're not putting in a big buy-in.
Yep.
today.
That's fine. This
Wait for the
kind of
DNR
puts
to-
it on your minds and
But at Andrew's point, he's saying if we pursue your route, you know, the meandering lake route, that's gonna be pushed back farther than this year period, and we won't have the resolution that we're looking for anyway. I mean, I understand that point, but it's like going, if you start getting lawyers involved, there's no way we'll get it done by fall, which is when you want it done
Well,
for the
some-
road part,
and
right?
Some of this, what I'm,
Is that kind of that was your point or understand?
That's exactly my concern, is that by pursuing this kind of unknown, even though I think we feel we have a strong position for it, he's gonna challenge us on that as well, and so.
But-
And to Danny's point, and I agree with you 100%, if we pursue that, well, what about the next road we come along? That wants Stella Washington, Stella Manuela, all those, and I'm just, because I know those, what are they gonna do? Now, we're gonna have the same issue come up there, I'm with you, I say we stay away from that if we can.
well, and I think the other piece to this is, it's kinda like, it ain't our fight.
That's right.
I mean, it's a goodwill gesture, as long as we're replacing it, we'll work with you, but if you guys can't figure out how to work together, why are we're not gonna be the punching post in the middle, I put in a box culvert. If you guys can figure out the weir situation and DNR gives you the answers you need on one side, I mean, the two sides need to figure out a way to come together and.
When you buy a piece of lake property, you have to understand that there are highs and lows and drought years and, I don't know, this whole idea of the eminent domain too.
I would never.
Yeah, that's a,
I would never.
that's,
that just can't.
it kind of
I
puts.
put a bullet in my head before I ever go for that. Not to have strong language or anything,
Just to
but
wrap this up then,
Yeah.
can we just see what happens with the DNR?
Sure.
And we
I'll sit on it and I'll be back in a
table,
month or so. Once we have a signed DNR permit and I have another conversation with the property owner.
One quick question before I let you go.
Mhm.
Doing the weir at the same time as the culvert, is that a huge dollar savings for the weir?
I wouldn't say huge, but it would be cost savings because the equipment's there, it's on site. If we don't put the nose section of the weir on, we would put a different concrete end section on. So if at a later date the weir were installed, you'd have some removals as well as the install of the weir. We're not talking about $100,000 or anything like that, but
we're still trying to get, even though with that culvert replacement, that approval too from this guy.
yeah. And he
I mean-
stated if we took the weir off of our plan, he'd
He
sign
did
off.
say that now.
Set up here.
Okay.
Took the weir off.
Well, I should rephrase that. He will not sign as long as there's a weir on the project.
That's what I thought he had
He
said,
didn't
which is a
guarantee that
little,
he
Different way of saying it.
Yes.
yeah, but it still leaves you open if you wanted to
We'll see what
throw.
happens.
Okay,
Thanks for.
thank you.
thank you,
Yeah.
Bill. Okay, Mary.
Mary Sprider, IT Director, and
Yeah,
I
the
have
guy
one item
is-
for your
It's a
consideration
guy
today.
this
Okay.
time.
The
Even the
request to
DNR, we can't even-
purchase Microsoft Exchange licensing and the corresponding Barracuda email security essentials, and the addition of the one-time cost for the migration software and vendor support. So looking at an Exchange project, a couple of highlights that the county would gain. Converting or upgrading to Exchange will allow the county to move to paperless workflow systems with the integrations that are built into other software. What does that mean? It means when the sheriff's office purchases Zerker, there's features that they can't utilize because the features only allow the integration with Exchange. When the county attorney purchased their prosecutor by Carpel, there's features that they can't utilize. So from within that software, they want to email out or they want to drag and drop in. Those features aren't available in GroupWise. So that's a limitation that we have. a cost that we're spending for software, a cost that we're spending for our email platform, both causing us, some pain there. So that's probably the biggest thing, and probably one of the biggest things that the department heads come to me to push for exchange on. Some other highlights would be larger mailbox size and built-in archiving for exchange. That isn't happening with GroupWise. The electronic calendaring would take the place of paper calendars and allow us to be more efficient that way. Shared calendars was one of the things that's not done with GroupWise very efficiently. Scheduling meetings will be done without doodle polls or those back and forth emails. When are you available? When are you available? How can we meet? So just getting 2 or 3 people, county employees, to meet will be much more efficient. And then there's some security improvements, multi-factor authentication, so that when you're away from your office, it isn't just a one-time password. There's an identity feature so that it's more secure. There's also a PhishER button that works with the county KnowBe4 training. So again, that's an integration with a software and security program that we already own. And it would be so that users could send an email with this PhishER button, and the system itself would tell them if it's safe or if it needs IT attention. So there's some security things in there that we could maximize as well. It's also a familiar platform, less of a learning curve. So you're maximizing your investment on both ends. You're maximizing your other county software, at the same time you're maximizing what you're expending for email itself. And this was something that was prioritized as a need by the IT committee. So that's exchange. Then moving into the Barracuda email filter, that's that second cost up here. So the $25,000 would be that first whole discussion that I just had, or description, and then the second item, the $11,000, the Barracuda filter is what the service that screens all of our email. It tries to keep the viruses, the malware, the spam from hitting all our mailboxes. So that's that cost. GroupWise is listed in here. GroupWise was getting a little more expensive each year, so they call it a maintenance agreement, and that's what we pay. So the net annual cost is $15,651. That means each year going forward, that's approximately what it would cost for exchange over GroupWise.
You calculated that on 262 mailboxes. How many do we have now?
We do have 262, that's what we based it on. The GroupWise licensing is a little bit different. It looks like there's a lot more email boxes than it does in exchange. GroupWise licenses the service accounts and the resources and those kind of things. Exchange does not. They have one administrator account, and all of those other service accounts are under there, so the licensing is a little bit different, kind of the way it's counted. So looking at the project as a whole, there's migration software built in, a preferred service agreement built into the project. For a project of this complexity, we'd have an engineer assist us designing it, configuring it, setting up those kind of things. Internal IT would do anything that was going to be done more than once. So setting up user mailboxes, address books, resources, groups, all of those kind of things we'll do internally. We'll partner with them. They'll do the configuration of the system as a whole. We'll do the setup and meet them halfway. So those are some of those one-time costs, the migration software, the preferred service agreement, and then there's some savings there as well. I had budgeted for an email archiver that won't be necessary, and also for some GroupWise licenses to purchase additional licensing this year, and that won't be necessary either. So there's some cost savings there. So this table is for the one-time costs and annual costs, but of course, this year in 2021, we don't have to pay a whole year's worth of licensing either. So what I'm asking for today would be 5 months of the licensing, would be August through December. So the 5 months of licensing would be about $15,000 plus the one-time costs. I still have to add those. So the total there would be $43,000. But then I can remove that GroupWise licensing in the archiver. So for 2021, the impact on the budget would be about $17,690.
You said that potentially, or these costs would qualify for some of this rescue plan funding?
Yes.
Is it possible to get how much paid for it? The whole ball of wax?
I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah.
Just 'cause I am. Just 'cause.
Well, the federal government writes you a check
I got the pretty money.
and IT qualifies, and that's it, right?
That's all I need.
It fits because it builds our capacity to provide economic relief programs. That's
Okay.
why.
Scary.
Per the rule.
At some point in time, you're not gonna like this.
So at moving forward, annual cost, increased annual cost moving forward, one-time cost, we got some costs incurred whenever you make a change. But 2022, 2023, what is our increase to the budget?
15,651.
Okay.
So it'll
I
cost
just wanna
that
make
much
sure.
more every year to have this program versus the group.
Correct.
And you're going to have to retrain all of us, take us all in, redo our emails. There's gonna be a learning curve for all 262.
I still haven't learned group
How-
wise.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to work
So
with me
there
again.
is gonna be a learning curve, but over time, even right at the cutover, there's anybody new coming on board almost
They know
always
it.
knows
They-
Exchange.
they
So
don't
we
work.
have such a learning curve now
Oh,
that we kind of feel that it will actually be a shorter learning curve to switch over than we're dealing with now.
Many people are already using this. It's just.
And
I'm sure, aren't
It's the
they?
standard.
oh yeah, and
Absolutely.
the client service, what we're actually going to see as our email service on here is not too terribly different than GroupWise. The basic stuff, there's still a button to send a new email. There's still all that stuff is generally the same. The difference is it's more robust. It's better able to integrate with different things. And one of the things that Mary didn't really touch on is the fact that as part of this, we're going to be implementing Microsoft Teams as well, which is a collaboration tool, which will allow us to better share documents. It'll allow us to, better, do virtual meetings internally and with others outside. And so there's a lot of things that come along with that that we're not able to do so well right now because of the systems that we have.
And I must tell you, as the old commissioner here, I have been trying to get rid of GroupWise, and all I was ever told was it was gonna cost so much money that we couldn't even consider it. And I wasn't told that from Mary, so this is so refreshing for me to hear from Andrew that we can actually do this, that I think everybody's gonna love it.
And that there are funds available now.
The question is on the funds, so every year this will cost us an additional 15,000, right?
Yes.
To have this one. How much is that ARP able to, impact that portion? I mean, how much can we go, how many years can we go to use that ARP money for this?
Yeah, it's going to depend on how quickly you all want to spend all of our ARP money. But I think that we could use it through 2024 to cover that cost because it's continuing to build that capacity. But ultimately, it's something we're going to budget for along with all of our other expenses. So.
I think you're gonna find it's just more user-friendly,
Yeah.
Well, and I
are
think
gonna like it better, and
it's,
take less training, right, Steve, don't you agree?
it's always it's the efficiencies that you create in the county attorney's office and
Right.
McKell, and, I'm guessing which areas, but county attorney definitely, that's one you identified. And it's always them efficiencies that you don't see a dollar return on that are hard to identify. It's hard to tell somebody, well, we saved this much in the county attorney's office.
It integrates so with all the rest of your Microsoft products, and look how many you use.
Yeah.
Of the Microsoft
Exactly.
Office products.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's,
How
we've been
about
beating
the
our head against
security
the wall.
issue? I'm always concerned, I email you, is this for real? Do I push this button? Well, what will implode?
Right. So, excuse me, the email itself is inherently risky,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But the safety protocols that are in place for Microsoft products, they're constantly releasing patches and fixes, and if they see any vulnerabilities, they address those right away. It's big, that's what they do. And then those other features that are built in, the fishy hour button that we can utilize, and I haven't seen that working, but I know someone who has it, and it works very well.
Yeah, the way that it worked, the way it was at least configured where I last worked, what happened was you got an email, you're not 100% certain about it, and so you click a button on the email, it says fish alert, and it actually deletes the email out of your inbox, sends a message to IT saying, hey, a user believes this was a phishing email, and then they can run any scans on it or do whatever they need to do to determine, is this truly a phishing email? They can, block them, all this sort of stuff. It's a lot easier than forwarding that email
Forward,
to someone else,
and then
or
get back to
and so
me.
it's so simple. It's just a button you click, and it's out of your life, and it's in Mary's life.
Yeah.
I got a lot of them I'd like to do.
Not necessarily for that reason.
Yeah.
Matter of fact.
I think
And
that's a
those are
fish.
some-
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
And same thing with multi-factor authentication. That is a feature that is going to be coming with GroupWise, but has not been in the past. And Microsoft has had that implemented in their products for a long time. So it's a risk, but it's a risk that we can
Email
take
is always
because
a risk.
yes,
Yeah.
there's protection in place, and the filter as well, and won't allow those vulnerabilities or the viruses and the malware to come through to your mailbox as much as possible. They try to prevent that. So
I can even create a rule that says, coming from Steve Schmidt, goes straight to deleted.
Yeah.
We just bypass
So I'm
it.
gonna make a motion to approve the purchase of Exchange Office 365 G1 licensing, the Barracuda Security Essentials, and one-time cost of migration software and the vendor support. I read it right off the paper, so it's gotta be written.
It's got to be right.
That's my motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve for the exchange. Any additional
I
questions
just
or
got one quick
discussion?
question, it isn't even this. Are we married to Marco? Do we ever look around, or have they just been here forever and that's who we always use? And I'm not trying to belabor it, I'm just curious.
we're tied to them for a couple of reasons. We get the state contract pricing, so shopping around there's not much value there.
Okay.
The other thing is they know our system. They've already been trained. They have to go through the same training that the sheriff's office does
I
to get on the
assumed that was
network.
that.
So they've already been certified and trained for CJDN, so that's an advantage because a lot of vendors, might not have that extra training. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
How soon would this be implemented?
I would go forward with the purchase right away. It would probably take about 90 days to be completed. So,
To be integrated, and then
Now,
after that, we would receive training after that 90 days?
Oh boy.
well,
It's not
I would say
mandated
you
training,
probably,
is it?
Yeah.
training.
Crap, we're gonna get more know before stuff that we're gonna have
And
to
start
do.
out with some
Steve.
general, here's your mailbox and how to use it. Probably the next thing would be we could send you a training that says, here's how to use the calendaring and maximize those features. So one thing at a time. And there's free training through Microsoft.
And we can set something up as a group
Well,
here
I was
as well.
saying, maybe we could all, a work day or something, if that would be beneficial.
This is a selfish question, but you set me up with Outlook. That's all, I don't have to worry about my files going away, that's all gonna stay, everything, perfect, thank you.
Pull the plug.
Is there,
Whoa.
What's this button for, Paul?
and if there's something that we can do to preempt the switch that makes our life easier, maybe we can, Paul, you can share some of that information with us.
It'd be best, this is just my opinion, but it's always best to have one lead trainer.
Yeah.
I'm showing you this, she's showing me this, that sometimes is really counterproductive.
Don't worry, I don't show him much, Mary. You were
Don't
worried
force
about
this
that,
button, Paul. Leave that button alone.
Okay.
Any
I mean,
further,
helping's one thing, Steve,
Yeah.
but teaching, one source for teaching.
any additional questions or comments?
And this is the
from
best
Mary?
fit you feel that's best for our county? I mean, you've explored that part, right, in terms of,
Yeah.
It's really the standard.
It is,
Gotcha.
and it's government tailored, so all those pieces are built into it. They're held to a higher level of their security just in the government cloud services, just that alone. So
Is this a step to get us away from green screens?
Doesn't completely get us away from
Pre
green screens.
2000, early
But
1990s.
I would say,
late 80s.
I'd say it gets us into the Bush era.
Which Bush?
Well, see, the nice thing is our administrator can share his calendar with all of us, so we can see when he's planning to go to Wisconsin for a.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh. Any other questions?
So if he comes back a little less educated, we'll understand why. And it's just like, just he was home. He was just home.
We better call.
We better go on, huh?
Vote.
It's getting too personal here.
Yeah, here we go. I believe we'll take the vote. All those in favor of the purchase, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried.
You're gonna love it.
Yeah.
Alright, I know we're behind, but I'm.
Want to take a little break at this time before we have?
You're in Georgia County, so.
All right, I could use another little cup of coffee here. Let's see, where are we at? That's done, and that's done. Now we have the bell next.
Don't you believe we should complain, remember last summer when we were sitting in those plastic things?
Yes,
Oh.
this is much better here. That was just a year ago.
I
Sit
talked to
overnight?
the guy and he's like, no.
Yes, perfect.
And I'm like, going, okay.
Alright.
I mean, no, I don't know what else to do on my end in terms of that.
Yeah.
I can,
It's natural. The flow is natural, and I hate to mess with some of that.
yeah, I
and-
mean, there's,
Because I think a bottom line is the dollar. I think it's property owners and dollars, and we better be careful with that.
yeah,
Um,
I hear money's a little touchy thing.
And water.
And water, now, especially now.
Water is,
I can remember.
the guy that pointed to the Sauk River watershed, seen me at Valley Days, and he goes, I just wanna thank you for putting me on that board. And he wasn't serious.
little sarcasm there?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
He said the only
Well,
guy.
you've never had
he said
that
the only
happen
guy
before,
that
yeah.
I really related with died of COVID on the board, so.
Oh, great.
I can remember, I graduated in 75, and that was, I always said, oh, the next Great War is gonna be over water.
Oh, yeah.
Might be true.
Well, around here, it's gonna be if we don't get some rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, out west for sure.
More years like this. No, that's a fear. Well, have
Did you
we,
say more years?
more years
Oh,
like
geez,
this?
don't say that, more years.
I know, it could get pretty serious, yeah, you start talking about things drying up out west, probably after Minnesota for their water. Well, are we back up and running? We are, okay, we will resume discussion, and our next presenter is Mikkel.
Good morning, Mikkel Johnson, Human Resources Coordinator. I am here to seek approval for the telecommuting policy. So Meeker County has seen varying levels of telecommuting since the pandemic started. So we actually have been doing quite a bit of telecommuting, so we're not new to the concept. But we are new to having a regular policy. When the pandemic hit, we started doing a temporary policy so that we could comply with what we needed to for the governor's orders. And through that, we've seen some successes with having that option for employees. So this would put into place more specifics going forward for a regular telecommuting policy rather than it being more of a temporary option. So the policy includes a lot of important things as far as definitions, which includes people that would be fully telecommuting or people that maybe are intermittently doing it. It would lay out the guidelines for how employees are selected, making sure that their role is a good fit for telecommuting and making sure we're still meeting the needs of the public through the telecommuting option. It talks about different things that they need for technology-wise to be able to make this work as well. And then it talks about different areas in the policy as far as work schedules and how the agreement would be carried out, different stipulations with that as well. Additionally, then there is a actual agreement that is signed, and then there is also a home office inspection. Those weren't included just because they're not the actual policy, but those will be additional safeguards that we'll be implementing as well. So through telecommuting, we've seen some areas where there's actually higher caseloads because more work is being performed because they are not having as many distractions as in the office. We are also seeing opportunities for space in the county buildings to be used for other purposes if we have staff that are actually going to be working mostly from home. So those are opportunities that would come about with this as well. We mostly foresee this more heavily used in social services would be the most heavily used of this. But there'll be other departments as well that will be using this, but that'll be the most heavily used area for this policy.
Are there expenses to the county? Will we have to set up a home office, set up software, set up computers?
So the policy outlines what expenses are the county's responsibility and what are the employee's responsibility. So part of that is that we're not actually setting up their office for them, so they need to be able to have that office set up at home. As far as the technology, a large part of that is already done. Most of the people that will be using this policy already have laptops. They already have the technology because they've already been using it this entire time that the pandemic has been happening. So there really wouldn't be a large cost for implementing this.
Because if they come here, we provide them the office, we provide them the lights, we provide them the computer, we provide them the chair, the desk. So if I decide I'm going to now telecommute, I take these resources to my home, or?
Not all of them. So for instance, like your chair, some of those things would be something that they would need to have at their own home themselves. So they would not be taking those county resources. We have during the pandemic allowed some of that, but that's part of the switch into having a regular telecommuting policy that now has more explanations of exactly what they can and can't do. So part of that's just a learning curve and something that we've had to do while learning how to telecommute and all of those things. So that would be part of their need to having their own office set up. So mostly would be like them taking their laptop and going.
How about internet access and speed?
So we have the internet access outlined in the policy so that they have to have the correct speed. We did make it a little bit more flexible because we are a rural county. We have to make sure that we have some flexibility in there. So if they're still able to perform their job and there isn't any issues with that, being really strict about the exact amount of upload speed and download speed that they have kind of put us into some boxes. So we did add some flexibility into the policy that as long as they're able to perform their work, that if their internet meets the needs, then that's okay. So it would be something we'd have to manage, and that their supervisors would have to manage and notice, you know, if and IT. So IT would be seeing the help desk tickets, and they would be reaching out at that point too. So it would be something that we would have to monitor a little bit to make sure if someone's not meeting the internet. But the employee is the one that pays for the internet.
Okay, because I want to work from home, but I have slow boat internet, so now you pay for it for me so I can work from home. Okay.
And I see here, it says technology requirements, 15 up download. I just did a speed test sitting right here. I got download of 19 and an upload of 660. So not even getting close, and this is wonderful right here.
Yeah.
Who,
He's not saying a word. But go over to the social service
Was-
building and see how it works.
Mikhail, who worked on the policy, or who helped put the,
Yep.
I mean, can you give me a little?
So we looked at what other counties were doing, and then Paul Bukovich and Phil Schmelz and I and Mary all looked at
okay.
this policy,
Okay.
so, and tweaked it to make sure that it fit our needs.
That's, I assume social side was hoping you talked to Paul, cause
Yep.
they've been most heavily impacted.
Yeah, both Paul and Mary were very involved with it. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
From a manager, department head standpoint, how do you monitor the work quantity? Are they performing what needs to be done? You know, this to me is an issue. I can understand certain things, telecommuting, yes, 100%. But I also believe that productivity for some folks has gotta be here. So I see you're taking it on a case-by-case basis, but.
So.
Yeah,
Yep, so social services has 100% time recording, whether they're actually in the office or at home, so they have to 100% record for everything that they do. They also have so many different client systems, like SSIS is the system that they use for recording all their client notes and everything that they're doing. So it's fairly visible what they're all doing and their productivity, which we've seen go up with working from home.
And I think what we have also found is that managing remote employees versus managing employees on site is really the same. I mean, you can tell if an employee is getting their work product done. You can tell if the quality of that product based on what you're seeing as the manager. And so, that's really what it comes down to. A person can waste time in the office as much as they can waste time at home. It comes down to the supervisor supervising and managing that point. Do we need to do that maybe a little bit more creatively because you can't, pop into someone's office or walk over their desk? Yeah, you do. But, through regular check-ins and, staying in touch with folks, you can't just leave a person out there on an island and not manage them. But it's in the same way that you would when they're in the office, so.
I know there was something in here as I was perusing that it cannot be something like for childcare needs or,
Correct.
so.
It's part of the reason too why we get the employee through the probationary period, is we want to get a sense of who this person is, what their work ethic is like, and then and they'll be here for a year. So then we could transition them to a remote employee or partially remote employee, and then we kind of know what to expect from that person. If it's a type of person who we already have some concerns about, probably not going to allow that to happen.
And they're not gonna have office space over here, and home space, and monitors at home, and monitors over there. How's all that gonna go together?
So for the departments, social services is the big one that's going to probably use it the most heavily. We're going to transition space over there into more hoteling space, rather than having. The intent is not to have, employees who have a dedicated office here and a dedicated office at
That's
home.
my question. 'cause
Yeah,
you got
for-
double the equipment, double
For some of the folks who might do it a little bit more intermittently, maybe, but we're not going to purchase monitors for them to have sit at home to use it once a week or
I'm
once a
gonna
month.
guess this will change as it grows. I think people
Yeah.
will know, what I think I've learned from friends who have gone out, are working from home during, some of them love it.
Mhm.
It's like the college students, some of them love it and some of them hate it. So that they will know if they're more productive. And I agree, they'll be able to tell who's being productive and who's not from past history and everything. I think some people will shine at it and some people won't. And that's just each person. I wouldn't work well from home, I don't think.
I see seniority will not be a basis.
No.
If you have two people though in the same office, how do you flip a coin, or you see which one works better from home? There'll be,
It'd be based on a lot of different things. It would be based on if they're both doing the exact same job, if their clients if they need to see their clients more face to face, there would be a lot of different factors that would come
different
in, yeah.
variables.
Well, and also, I think that's been a discussion with LMC at times about how come this one gets to work from home and I don't get to
Yeah.
work from home, and there's reasons that their supervisors know that probably we don't need to know, but I'm sure there's good reasons for it.
Yeah, some of it's management, right? I mean, you have to be able to manage your office to
Absolutely.
get the work done.
Productivity matters, and you're gonna be able to tell.
Do we need a motion to approve this telecommunicating policy?
Would you like to make such a
I'll
motion?
make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve the telecommuting policy.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and it has been seconded to approve the telecommuting policy. Is there any additional discussion or questions for Mikkel?
I'm just gonna say this, I'm not, I think social services is a perfect example of how it can work, where they get more productivity and more efficiency. I'm not sold on telecommuting. People are losing social skills, we bring them back in here and they start meeting their, these people that we talk to on the phone, it's a whole different thing.
You own some office buildings, don't you?
No, I don't.
No, I agree with
Well,
that, and I don't think it's for everyone, but if we look, for my years as commissioner, if you look at social service, we're kind of behind. They've been doing it in other counties for a long, at least the larger counties for sure. And it's the same way with public health, they save time, they don't have to come into the office and then leave, they can go to their appointments when they. So there's some things that really make sense, and I can see where some things it probably isn't going to.
Well, and I think the policy just gives, basically we didn't have one. So I mean.
Exactly.
It's
Right.
creating a policy
Right.
to address what we're already doing, not creating a policy to create a job.
And there will be continuous updates with
Yes.
these people
Yep.
to see how they're doing.
It's also a recruiting tool as well. A lot of times when we're interviewing social workers, we're getting asked that a lot is, can this position work from home?
Kind of gives you a capability to hire people hardly farther out, maybe a little bit.
Mhm.
But
A wider reach.
a wider
Yep.
reach.
Yep, very good.
Work for it.
Yeah.
That was one of the discussions at Prime West when they were talking about hiring, that is a tool for
Yep.
hiring. It's an incentive.
Our policy does require them to work within the state of Minnesota for taxes and workers' compensation issues, but certainly if someone who lives in Stearns County is interested in working for Meeker County, but they don't want to drive all the way to Litchfield, it may make it a little bit easier for them.
I think some of our remote psychiatry, don't quote me, but I think some of it is probably from another different state who's doing
Mm-hmm.
they just online with them forever. So it's the way, whether you approve it. We tried this with one other employee a few years ago and it just didn't work, so we need to know if it works.
I'm kind of with Paul, the same thing. I'm old school, but it's kind of something that's going to naturally occur anyway, and it's already happening. So it's a policy, and it's up to the supervisors, really, anyway.
And if you're not confronting an employee that's not performing now, you sure aren't gonna do it by telecommunication.
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote yes when it comes time, because we need a policy.
Yes.
But that is not my feeling, that we should be telecommuting and having it, but we do need
We
to have
need
a
the
policy.
policy.
That's the only reason I'm voting for it. I'd like to see people back at work, with the exception of social service and public health, because there is the shining working star of this thing.
But they're the only ones that are gonna be.
Primarily, they're the ones who are going to use it the most. You might find an employee here or there, but for the most part, I think other than one or two fairly rare examples because of special circumstances here in the courthouse, I think everyone is at work.
Well, and
So
it's,
it also makes room for us needing less room if it
Yep.
works, so that's something. that-
Shuffling of office.
Cause like, I think a GIS, I could see her being able to work from home probably. I'm not saying she should, that's an example of someone who
That-
probably could.
That was my first experience. In my last job, we had a GIS person who, once the pandemic started, they worked from home for the first. I mean, I was only there for 9 months after it started, but I never saw him again, and it was because he could, had the capability to do it, and it worked out really well. And so
I always wonder though, if you had an employee that was working remotely and you wanted them to, and they said it just doesn't work for me, we wouldn't force them to do that, then, right?
No, and the agreement even talks to that too, or the policy even speaks to that.
See, the thing it takes away is Andrew's doing something on the computer and I walk in and say, hey, do you know how to do this? And he goes, well, yeah, come here, I'll show you. You take away that interaction, that opportunity to learn and teach.
But as we have more collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams, that becomes easier because you just ring the person up on their computer and you can see that they're there working, and so you can pull them up there and they can share their screen, and it's a lot easier today than it was even 2-3 years ago to do
Will
this.
some job descriptions be rewritten to allow for, hey, now I don't maybe need to come 5 days a week because I live 30, 40 miles away. Can I reword my job description?
Our job descriptions right now, I don't think really speak to where the work is being performed. It's more what duties are being performed. So I don't know that the job descriptions would change, but this is still new thing that we're navigating, so you never know. But our job descriptions are more based on what duties are performed versus how often they're in the office. So.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because this telecommuting, unless they live in another state and we hired them with that pertain, must be done. They can't take this and go on vacation.
Correct.
Okay, it was in there, right?
Correct.
I read that.
yeah, I think we're addressing what we're already, not encouraging managers to send everybody home.
Correct.
Next thing you know, we're gonna have our snowplow operators doing it from virtually.
It's
That's
honestly, it's probably the wave of the future.
Probably is,
Remote.
driverless vehicles.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it, but.
So who you gonna give the finger to when they throw snow on your driveway?
What fun that'll be.
A robot's not gonna respond to that. Darn.
Ones in your district will have your picture on the door.
Yeah.
And Danny, from an employer perspective, we don't want the robot to respond.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, let's call the question.
But I
Yeah.
think we will move forward with that. Okay, we will, we have a motion and it has been seconded. We have had a discussion. Is there any further discussion? No, we will take the vote. All those in favor of approval of the telemarketing policy, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mikel. Now we move on to Andrew.
Yes, I have 4 items for you today. I will be brief. The first item is a follow-up to something that you did back in January. We transfer funds from the general revenue fund to our parks and public health funds twice a year. This is the second of those transfers, and the dollar amounts are on your screen.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to move to approve the following transfers: $100,334 from general revenue fund to parks, and $376,206.50 from general to public health.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second to transfer some funds. Do we have any discussion or questions for Andrew on that? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, our second item is approval of the appropriations that would be sent out in July. We have a total of $203,404 between all the different organizations. One of the items that's on here is the Historical Society. If you recall from our discussion in January, there was a funding match for them to get an additional $7,500. I've heard from the executive director that they've been able to get all that money through donations and through their programming. She's working on getting me the back up for that. So what I would suggest is we actually, if the board is comfortable with it, approve a total amount of $210,904 with the expectation that they're going to be able to provide me with that documentation.
Well, I'll wait till we have a motion.
Can we also, go ahead then.
Can we just amend this motion or how?
Separate motion.
Yeah, we could, I mean, ultimately, if you want to have the dollar amount in the motion, then it'll determine based on the discussions.
Because here it simply says move to approve the appropriations and that would be an addition.
I'll make a motion to approve the appropriations for July for a total of $203,404. Also to include an additional $7,500, that, on the condition that, the Historical Society provides the documentation needed to give
collect
it-
that funding.
To collect
Okay.
that funding for that match.
Do I hear a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion. It has been seconded as corrected. Any further discussion or questions?
Back in January, and I apologize for this because I saved that sheet, I just can't remember where I filed it. We had a discussion and we changed a figure on that original appropriation.
That was
Wasn't
from
that
the year
what-
before.
So what we did is, we lowered that figure from whatever 27,500 divided by 2 is 13,000 and change, to 10,000. That was the change that was made in January. So, because when this was put together, that agreement over this, that funding match for the 7,500, got missed, and so.
I could remember something and I knew I had made notes about it, but then I couldn't find
I
it.
thought that was one that we had the wrong figure on.
I thought we had.
That was last year. This was something different, I think.
Yeah, I think there was some confusion of whether, yeah, there was some confusion of whether it was the wrong figure, or it turned out it was the funding match issue.
I think you're
I cleared that up with.
Whether it
with
was
Sharon
budget or
on that.
not, I think is what
Yeah,
it was,
and
wasn't it?
so it is budgeted, 27,500 is budgeted for the Historical Society. But the agreement was 20,000 would be the appropriation, and
Yeah.
then there was a $7,500 funding match if they could get that through donations through their programming. So that's what they're gonna provide documentation.
It seems like we used to have that same kind of agreement with the fair, but apparently we don't. Agricultural Society, we must not have had that.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like it.
What?
I don't like matches
Well,
with
that's fine. I'm
appropriation.
just asking if, I thought we had a,
Set the number.
we did have it one time, maybe. it
Okay,
was-
I haven't seen that.
That we can
Give them
approach next
something
time.
to,
Yeah.
give them something to work toward.
Yeah.
So you gonna do that with all these?
Well, there's some of them here I would if I had the opportunity, but.
I think with taxpayer appropriations, you set the number and that's what,
Well, you're the budget committee, so
I mean, I think that's one of them.
it's fine.
I don't like that variation.
Do you set the budget assuming that they will receive a match?
Well,
Yes.
you have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
But you also should be offering that to everybody on the list then.
Yeah.
And that,
Well, we'll take it at the Humane Society, cause
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
double our money real easy.
Fill out the forms and
That's,
But I
that's
mean, you
exactly
guys are
his
the-
point.
You guys are the budget committee, so just bring that forward with your 2,000.
I mean, in essence, you should be presenting that to everybody with the equal opportunity that they can,
Maybe they have, I don't know.
no, we haven't.
But then that needs to be stated right away
Up
at the beginning
front.
of the year, up front.
Yeah.
And we've already agreed to pay them.
We have to
They
do
gotta-
this one.
We gotta do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is back,
This is,
done. I mean, I
this is from
understand.
last year's
I'm-
budget, yeah. He's just stating, you know, that
Moving forward,
concept, and I'm in agreement, otherwise you'd have to really do it for each one of them, otherwise you're just choosing, picking and choosing in terms of that, you know, but that's not really part of this discussion,
Yeah.
right? So, did I second it then? Do we need a,
Yeah.
okay.
we're
Did I second all that too? I didn't see it.
It's been a motion made, seconded, and we're in the process of discussion. Is there any
Oh.
additional discussion or questions on the motion of approving? Hearing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Third item is, formal approval of the goals that we discussed at our last work session. So I took, oh, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I move to approve proposed goals for the county administrator, Andrew Letson.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded in regard to approval of the goals discussed previously with Andrew. Is there any discussion?
I'll just mention that we did meet with Andrew after a personnel meeting a couple weeks ago.
Okay,
And some of these, of course, aren't gonna be done in 6 months. They're more long-range goals, and you can pick out which they are, the merit system, and transitioning of elected to appointed. There's just some things that are longer term, so, and I'm sure everyone understands that.
You see number 11 there, Danny? He becomes a Minnesota Viking fan.
Oh,
yeah,
whoa,
that
yes,
was
that is
number-
interesting there.
That was
He'll
an
have to
amendment.
if Rogers leaves.
After watching.
He'll have
it
nothing to
last
watch.
days, I don't blame you for not becoming a Vikings fan.
Long-term goal.
I have.
Oh dear. Okay. And this still includes the date up through the end of the year?
Some of them.
Oh, yeah, okay. Any additional discussion or questions about the list of goals other than the amendment of number 11 there?
The way you get 11 is through his daughter. So I know how to work that, so.
She'll be the one.
Yep.
Start 'em young.
I have to.
Look at the concern on his face now. The most concerned he's looked at in 6 months.
What's your favorite color? Sweetie? Purple? Purple? Yeah. Any further discussion? Otherwise, we'll take the vote. All those in favor of approving the goals, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good.
All right, the last is an item that is something the county's been working on for a few years now as part of a bigger effort. This past week, we received notice from the outside counsel who's working on the opioid lawsuit on our behalf that Purdue Pharma, who is the producer of OxyContin, has come to an agreement with all of the different claimants on a proposed settlement through their bankruptcy. As part of that, funds would be made available for a nationwide opioid trust, and then those funds would be distributed to a variety of partners, including state and local governments, to take efforts to abate the impacts of the opioid epidemic. So included in that is Purdue Pharma, the company, would be reorganized as a new company with the goal of continuing to produce opioids for legitimate medical needs, produce medications to reverse adverse reactions to opioids and treat overdoses, and to produce revenues that would be distributed to state and local and tribal governments to be used to abate the effects of the opioid crisis. And over time, that company would be dissolved and sold off. All of the profits from that would go into this trust, as well as up to $4.2 billion from the Sackler family, who are the owners of Purdue Pharma. Up to $4.2 billion. $1.2 billion of that would come from sale of non-U.S. Owned pharmaceutical businesses, and then $3 billion would come from the family itself. So the trust would have at least $4.2 billion plus anything that comes from the sale and the operation of this new corporation. A fair amount of money of that would go to personal injury trusts, third-party payers, hospitals, and people who have direct claims against the company, and then another big chunk of it would go into the state and local government trust. There's also then a formula for how that gets distributed across all of the states, and then money would then go out to local governments based on need. So what we could potentially use some of that money for is, enforcement issues with the sheriff's department, DARE program, things like that, social services, chemical dependency programs, all of those sorts of things. No clue yet what the county's share out of the trust could potentially be. It's going to ultimately be determined based on what the sales of all of those different items are going to occur. However, the plan is that the trust would run through a 10-year period through 2031, so money will be dispersed over that 10-year period. What we're being asked to do right now is vote on whether or not we as a claimant agree with the proposed settlement. A certain percentage of claimants need to vote in favor of the proposed settlement for it to go forward. And our outside counsel, Burrell and Benson, as well as the county attorney, both support the county board voting in favor of that. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
And we have to do this in order to potentially have access to these funds to use within our county.
If the settlement ultimately is not approved by the claimants, it could all fall apart and we don't know what would happen at that point. At this point, we know that this trust would be developed and money would be made available for these abatement efforts. The future is unclear of what would occur if this agreement can't be come to.
Okay.
How long have they been litigating this thing?
They filed a petition for bankruptcy in 2019, September of 2019. So bankruptcy's been going on for just under 2 years, but I believe the first lawsuits went in 2017 or so. It's been a while.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to
yeah.
authorize the county administrator to submit the ballot approving the proposed bankruptcy settlement with Purdue Pharma.
Here that we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion. It has been seconded. Do we have any additional questions? Any discussion? For Andrew? Hearing none, We will take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, that concludes my items. Oh, I have administrator's
And-
report, no report today. Thank you.
Oh, you have a report,
That
but
was
no,
your
no
reporting, no
report.
report today.
My report is that there shall be no report.
Is that because of telecommunicating?
Yeah,
Communicating, that we just not doing anything then, or we need to go back?
Then we have committee updates. Who would like to go first?
I can go. I only have two, so it'll be short. We had a UCAP meeting, Heather Jesuits has been promoted. She was our local UCAP contact here in Meeker County. She was promoted into Debbie Brandt's old position, so, she's getting a change, so we'll have someone new coming here.
What was
Otherwise,
that position? I remember the name Debbie Brandt.
Deb Brandt is now the executive
What
director.
was she before? Was she down here?
No, she was in Lomer, it was public,
Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
yeah, you did, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
Working well.
Here's the quiz.
they're actually looking, they did a little survey. This has been that one meeting that starts at 5:30 once a month and lasts all 187 pages of the report
Ah,
of the meeting.
We're
So,
still doing it remote.
yeah, but now they wanna go back to, in 5:30, driving down to Redwood Falls.
You can drop her. It's gonna cost you more than you think when your wife finds out you can drop her at the casino when you go to the meeting.
there
You
go.
probably shouldn't have done that as public knowledge. Now she can find it.
But now we have a telecommuting policy, so play with that.
The other thing about UCAP is it did not, the bonding bill did not go through, so it appears that it's gonna have to be taken up in September, which would affect our homes that we were trying to get built here in Meeker County.
Can't hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see what happens this fall as, they go back to session and go back to work on that budget bill and bonding bill, and hopefully we can get that passed. The second, meeting is CPT. I went there, I came away with good feelings, because when they gave the report about their first HR training session being that previous Thursday, and just kinda sounded fluffy, like, hey, we turned a corner, et cetera, et cetera. And, but I did have a nice visit with Bob Fox there, who is on the executive board. So then, the second HR module training was on Tuesday, and Mikkel went to it, and then reported to Andrew. And I think probably the best way to describe it was, as it was to me, it was a colossal waste of time. So, I heard at one point in the meeting, one thing that troubled me, and it didn't resonate until after I got the message from Andrew. And Commissioner Kopitsky from Stevens County at one point said, hey, remember now, we gotta protect CPT. I agree with that, but at what cost? You know, if we're not providing the services that we're supposed to. So I reached out to Bob Fox after Andrew's report, and I said, Bob, what are we gonna do? And he said, I got the same report from my people in Renville County. He said, I'm gonna bring it to the executive committee. And if we're either gonna do this right, or let's just go back to doing taxes. And that's it, and hosting, and being done. So I trust Bob, I really like him. I believe he will carry it to the executive committee. Commissioner Kopitsky, I think, being from Stevens County, where CPT headquarters are, is somewhat protective of CPT. But I think it's okay to protect something and to fight for it, but they gotta be giving us what we're paying for.
Return of ROI. That's very
And I just don't see us getting the bang for the buck, so.
Well, what are we protecting them from? I'm missing something.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Kopitsky and
No, but I mean, are we not?
Don't want it to go away.
they don't want it to go away.
Well, why would we think it would?
I don't know, it was just the flavor of the way he toned that.
Sounds like there's change in the air, and change is scary, so now you start circling the wagons a little bit to protect
Do we have a
your
contract with
assets.
them? And how long is that for?
I'd have to look that up. I'm not certain. I'm not certain.
Is it in 3 years?
It's been a couple of years now.
Yeah, I'd have to
I
look
think
it
it's
up.
in 3 year, we renew it every 3 is what sticks in my head, but.
So I just want everybody to keep it on the radar. You know, I hear from Andrew, he's the one who lets me know when things aren't going right, and I'm carrying it to the executive board, and I'll keep you informed as to when I hear back from. I sent Mike and Gwen an email last week, and I have not gotten a response. Now, granted, that was Thursday, so Friday, yesterday, probably nobody was working, but.
Holiday.
So who are they?
So, they're the executive directors.
Oh.
So, you know, sometimes you want things to be good, you make it sound good, but, you know, there's a difference between being good and doing good.
Well, you know, the selling point was it was a co-op. Always do better in a co-op, which nobody could, we did have one commissioner that was against it, but, because we would reap some benefits from it, I don't know if anybody understood the whole, I certainly didn't. I took the recommendation of what we had going here, so.
There's nothing wrong with questioning it, that's for sure. Nothing wrong with keep asking questions.
I
It's,
asked him, I mean, they
otherwise-
got
Hopefully they can-
$200,000 in the bank.
How much?
$1,200,000. All right, now I realize that there's a lot of exposure there, they're running our servers, they saved us money, but, you know, they took that, of course. However, if we're not using any of that money to produce software, or at least produce a training manual that goes with the software, we're missing the boat.
Well, this story is old, so
Well, and
it
if
goes
you
back
can't-
a long way from the original person that sold to them, and there was some things that probably shouldn't have been the way they were done at the time, so. But if they can't morph into what the counties need, then maybe, then I agree with you. But I think, I'm just saying, I think they're pretty new.
Well, if you can't explain it, I mean, if they can't explain, if you have to protect it because of your fear of it going away, that tells me in your mind you have your own reservations that, you know, you need to find somebody who can give you the answers that you need and answer your constituent.
Or you have your own agenda.
Your joint powers, your own joint powers board, you got some questions there, you need to get them answered. ASAP in my mind, I mean, otherwise, figure out what your targets are, I mean, it's hard to project and if you can't explain your own, procedures to the people that are invested in your program, I mean,
To make it a
you
real-
you guys should be able to ask the questions.
They had HR module training. And one of the things that everybody's having trouble with, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's generating the reports. So they did not even do a sample generation of reports so everybody could see it. They said, here's one of the features, but didn't do the sample generate. Well, here you got all these people in there that wanna learn how to do it. But the trainer, I'm not sure, based on what I was told, I'm not sure the trainer knew how to.
I don't know.
I don't know. So, you know, here's a case where we've got software and they wanna integrate Benefits Connect, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah. So that you can have open enrollment into things, they wanna integrate this, but it's just, it's not working.
what's your take on CPT? Are you too green yet in terms of just knowing this county to get it yet? I mean, you're the most tech savvy person here.
My take is that, as Commissioner Elberg mentioned, there was a lot of things that were going on when it was privately owned that were not necessarily benefiting all of the clients. And as we've moved into it being, you know, a co-op, a joint powers alliance, they've worked to try and fix a lot of that stuff. And I think that they've worked to try and expand in certain areas without first maybe fixing all of those things. They're very good at some stuff. Some of it's not very up to date. And it does not seem to be that drive to push things forward into a really forward-thinking way. That's my concern.
Some of that issue, before he sold, I can't remember the guy's name, it doesn't matter. was connected here in the courthouse, and you would have just thought, and it was some elected officials, and he was the only one that could do a thing, and we just got farther behind and farther behind. And I think, this is just me personally, I think he saw the handwriting on the wall. But too many of us just sat here and let that go on, because for me, it was because of my lack of understanding of technology. However, our previous commissioners, like, had knowledge like Paul does. But to get any change at all was just, am I saying this wrong? I mean, it was difficult. So when he sold out to CPT, and he's a very wealthy man today because of that, and that was sold us, it seemed like it was gonna be more positive no matter what, because we were, green screen, we were just stalled. But I think that they need to, I agree, I mean, maybe they don't have the proper help in the proper place. I mean, there could be many reasons, right?
Yeah, I think this HR module issue has gone off the rails for them in a lot of ways, and one of the challenges is the fact that they implemented a module, they didn't put together a manual to teach people how to use it or to refer back to, and then when they had their training, they, like Paul said, they didn't really train on the thing that people were really looking for. And then they still didn't have that thing that people could refer back to later when they had questions. The manual's still not done. They couldn't record the training so that someone could go back and watch it later.
Maybe they didn't know how.
And so, yeah,
You gotta wonder.
yeah.
A trainer should be somebody who can do anything, question asked coming from the audience. How do I do this? So, all right, there's gonna always be that question where you can't, and you say, I'm gonna get back to you, and you follow it up. But I never heard any indication from Cal or even Bob Fox that that's what he got reported from his county, that they did that.
No.
So,
I think, if we're looking, it might be interesting, Andrew, to know how old that contract is, what we need to do to get out of it.
Yep.
Not saying
Or if
that
we
will.
need to,
And
or
what
if
are
there's,
our options? What are
we don't
our
wanna
options?
run on a group wise type thing.
Questions
So-
going on, I think you're gonna
So,
spur some action on it. I mean,
That's,
I mean,
that's a
it's
good
to have
thing.
plan in
yeah,
place, is what
yeah,
I'm saying.
Yep.
it's-
yeah,
I think they're good questions, so.
I might not be welcome at the next meeting, but I
And
don't care.
I
I'm gonna
know,
be there.
I know
Yeah, I don't walk
Kapinski,
away
and
from
in
it.
his, Kapinski says, in his defense, I don't think he meant we have to protect him at all costs. That's how Bob is. I've known him over the years, he's very protective of any organization he's in. However, he's also very sensible, so if you sit down and address what your concerns are, from what I know of Bob, he's gonna listen, so.
He did not say protected on costs, he just said.
We have to, right, and I'm saying, I don't think he means that you ignore things that, I don't think that at all. So, I think I just don't know him to be that way.
Good,
So.
good.
Yeah, he's on emergency
Right.
services
So
board with me too, and he asked some pretty, direct questions there.
Well, he's not.
From a different perspective.
and to that question about what are our options, there are options out there. I can say that in the administrator groups that I'm a part of, this has been a topic of conversation. There are several counties that have been moving to new software, enterprise software packages to do all the stuff that CPT does for us. It's not inexpensive, but there are options that are out there. And so if we get to that point, we can look into that further. So, and there are folks who are going through the integration processes right now who can provide us with some insight on that. So.
Well, maybe it'll be a cheaper route by you asking these questions, having them fix it so we don't leave it and then go somewhere else. Well, it will be more expensive probably.
Well, I think the idea of a co-op between counties is a great idea. I mean, if you go back to co-op, it's for everyone, but I think they just haven't gotten their sea legs, and maybe people haven't asked the right questions, and maybe.
I think you're on the right track, personally.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna keep pushing.
yeah, no, I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bath.
No,
I mean,
but we gotta push.
yeah.
What's important is getting the feedback from the group that's here.
Yep.
So that I can, if I'm gonna ask a question, I want it to be fact-based, not, well, it didn't because, no. What exactly was it? Cause there ain't nothing worse than walking up to somebody and saying, well, this was supposed to do, well, no, you don't really know,
No, I'm 100% on board in what you're doing, so.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Well, thank you for that very brief little 2-point
Yeah, like
report there.
Whoa, some nice biting sarcasm. Shoot,
I've done it.
And I was kinda wondering,
are we rubbing off on you or are you getting, this is good?
Danny called Andrew Green too, I was just whether that had
Wait a
anything to do with
I
Green Bay. or-
No, well, yeah, it's a double
Now we're
meeting,
back to that
double
again.
meeting.
I thought there was some hidden-
You gotta get to my intellect level to really get into what I.
Well, I have a very short little 4-point
That's what
commitment
Paul said.
here. Yeah.
You got 4 pages there.
Well, just 4 little points. I'll make it as brief as Paul did. Let's see. Let's see. On Tuesday, the 15th, we had our regular commissioner meeting, and then at 1:30 that afternoon, extension. And Danny, you were with us on that. It was the first time that we met in person, and so I was at the fairgrounds with the folks that met in person. They discussed a potential sharing of a position between Meeker and McLeod. There are 2 interns on board for the summer, one in the 4-H program, one in social media and communications. Met them. The extension educator is out on maternity leave, so there's a new person filling in there. They're getting ready for the county fair. County fair will be the real deal this year. Entry day is a week ahead, and animal judging will be during the fair. So they're looking forward to that. Lots of summer camps were taking place. And then at the end of that meeting, I was given a very nice little facilities tour of the fairground area. Then at 6:30 that evening, the 15th, we had our Board of Appeals meeting. Steve, Beth, Paul, Barb, myself were there. That was here at the courthouse. And we had that report within our packet, so you folks are aware of all that took place there. Then on Thursday, the 17th, I had my library, Pioneerland Library. We're still meeting Zoom. There were 3 new assistants hired. There was 1 retirement, and I found this interesting. Within the retirement of the Pioneerland now, a current librarian from the area takes on the responsibilities of the retired position, and they have gone from 32 librarians down to 12 head librarians. So they are doing a lot of things remotely and eliminating some of those expenses. There's $91,000 available in American Rescue Plan funds that will be distributed among Pioneerland libraries. They're working at hiring a consultant for their telecommunication technology resources. They hope for a 3 to 5 year contract. More coming on that later. And they were hoping to do a review of membership because it's been difficult to get quorums. So they're working on reviewing their actual membership within the committee. And they're working on their next budget, and it depended on what happened with the legislature. So there was more on that coming later. And my last meeting was Thursday, the 24th. It was another extension meeting to discuss with the commissioners of the 3 counties, Meeker, McLeod, and Wright. They're discussing a 75% position in horticulture, to do a hiring for that to enhance the horticulture area. 75% position allows for a benefit package, which will increase the draw of potential candidates for that. Each county would be required to pay about $4,500 to accommodate. And that is my report. Who would like to go next?
I'll piggyback off you since I
Yep.
have extension too.
Yep.
So the extension, we had the extension. We've always shared McLeod, extension person with McLeod. And what we're doing now is usually it's been 50-50 where they've used it, her 50% us, but we've only paid 25% of the actual salary. So they felt like this is the timing to move it 50-50. Otherwise, McLeod will be not so happy with us in terms of that relationship.
What was that cost? Do we have
I think it was,
a rough, I mean,
Well, it's a $75,000
Oh, okay.
salary, so,
Position, yeah.
yep, so
We were on the
roughly,
hook
it's
for
gonna,
25 of that, and
so that'd be
So-
37.5. Go
Why-
ahead.
Why now? I mean, are they spending the same amount of time? I mean,
They're spending the same amount of time with McLeod and Meeker, is what I've been told. And this has been an ongoing discussion, and they just felt like, maybe now is the time to actually make it right with McLeod.
because boards I'm on with McLeod, of course, they're a bigger county, so.
Yep.
If there's money coming in, they get more. And then they get more of the expense also, but I don't know how extension works, so. But if that's not a factor, if they're both, then I understand it, otherwise.
I don't know why it started that way.
Yeah.
Period. I never got that addressed, why it was
Right.
Yeah,
Well, it's
basically 3 to
interesting
1.
know, yeah.
But, talking to the other people in extension, they felt like this was the time, and they were thinking about doing it last year, but previous people have said, just hold off on it. If we're getting a good deal, let's run with it. So it's always been, but, and then, I had a Woodland Center meeting with Beth. She was there, I was remote. And basically what they said, they're going to increase the salary of I couldn't quite get, is it just,
They've lost another clinician.
it was just the clinicians basically, and it was,
I think our whole salary schedule is off, but.
yeah, I know, which you're always battling with every industry's battling
We are
that.
really struggling. Could
But-
you hear us when you were remote?
I
never heard
I'm-
from anybody that was remote.
I'll be honest, I'm about done with remote when everybody else is in person, because I struggle with extension. It's just
Difficult, isn't it?
because it's echoey and you can't get any perspective anyway. But I'm trying to do it just for timing. But and so basically, it's an increase of what, almost 30% in terms of the salaries or something in terms of those
I don't remember
clinicians.
the figure they're looking into. We're very, very far behind, and we're losing clinicians
But it's-
all the time.
but
We're
it's-
down like 6 employees.
But it's going to be tricky because still the counties have to justify. Eventually they're going to have to kick it back down to the counties, and we're going to have to pay more. And then sometimes it looks like, how much is it?
Well, the good part of that is the CCBHC that they're trying
You're right.
to be approved for, and don't ask me what that acronym stands for, but, so, we can put all this cost into that because it's cost-based, so like.
That's why they're doing it
So
too.
they're kinda doing it right now because they'll get that money back when they get credited for this.
It's more of a federal program, isn't it?
And what they do is they take care of every patient's whole, their meds, they have all these different things in place. So it's a whole plan for the person, you see to it, they have housing, so we're gonna get paid better. But and so if we put those expenses in now, they'll come back to us when we get approved. The other factor is we're not able to keep clinicians, and you can't operate without them, so.
It was a two-prong attack. That's why I actually did it. Who's the CEO? It's because they have this federal program that they're gonna incorporate, and then they can get funding from that through this, and then they're running out of. If you can't keep clinicians, you're in the wrong. You're not mental health anymore.
Exactly.
So I had that. I had a class comp with Steve, where we basically talked about, I don't know, how many individuals did we that we actually pertain to, and it's
We discussed 6 positions for 2022 budget.
yep for 2022, which I'm getting used to this A, B, C alphabet soup of alphabet
Steps
soup
and
of the
levels.
steps in terms of each county employee and stuff, and how they went about figuring it out, why they went about figuring it out, and then we're trying to just tweak it in terms of what I felt like that day was about. In terms of the different heads felt like some things needed to be adjusted, and they couldn't really do it during the COVID year. You can go on. You can piggyback off that if you have anything else in terms of that.
One thing that seems to come up in class and comp that I've noticed is that a lot of times we compare ourselves to other counties, but in many instances we can't do that because
Population size.
well, there's that, but there's also does their level 12 equate to the same level 12 or, you know, or the step that we're on? So sometimes that's, the argument for a reclassification or comp isn't necessarily the, comparable to a county around us. Just cause the person is, classified as this position, but that doesn't equate to the same pay scales in both counties, so.
Similar to Julie's article from the paper today.
Yeah.
So I have a question, and so I think there's more of these reclassifying since we did this merit study. Does that always happen because people don't put their classification? Or am I just seeing something?
Oh,
I don't recall hearing about this many
Holy crap.
reclassifications previously.
boy.
So of the ones that came forward this time, I would say 3 of them were certainly because as they went through this study, either there was a different person
little
who had
better about
completed
it now.
the questionnaire and neglected to include information that the position actually does, or they felt it was misclassified as they went through it. One of them was a position that we discussed today, because there was changes in that department. And then the other 2 I felt were, they were probably misclassified to begin with, but they, the duties that the positions are performing are really outside of what the job description is currently calling for.
I worry that when we did this, we spent money and did it. We spent quite a bit of money and did it. And I think people weren't all happy. So now we're gonna go back through and who's on this committee, you two and you and Brandy?
County attorney and Popovich and McCall.
McCall.
So there's nobody else?
No.
I'm assuming you're all aware of that, but I mean, we spent good money. Everybody said, we're gonna get up to where we need to be, and then ever since that, I keep hearing about this. You know, everybody isn't gonna be happy in a compensation study. That's just the way it is. So I'm
But what,
assuming you guys.
but
keep
what
all
happened
that
the
in
last
mind.
time you guys did it is no one got a reduction though, so no one should be really totally
Some did,
disappointed.
but some didn't get anything. They didn't get a reduction, however, some did not, I don't
I-
believe.
No,
Which-
everyone got at least something.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
I was led to believe that there was.
Some
people that-
increase.
Can't remember what the bottom line is, but.
Well, and I think it,
I mean, sometimes I'm assuming you're all aware of that and it doesn't become.
I'll make, the short answer on the day was it was a net gain for the budget.
Okay.
At the end,
Well, of course.
making the changes we did, we still had a net gain, for
Right.
the budget. I mean.
Due to Diane's
Well,
position.
that was because Diane came in 50. I understand that.
Yeah,
I know that.
But that's because she was creative, like she always does.
And we're looking for, always looking for other areas to do that. The other piece to that puzzle is, I think, class and comp, we've also identified there were some things we didn't do. I should make that, because if we did them, now you opened up Pandora's box. Now there's 2 people in this department, 3 people in that department that all fall in that category. So just because we have class and comp
Well, when we did
and
the.
a wage study and stuff
Well,
still
when we
gives
did
us
this-
a management right
I,
to manage as
when we
best we
did the
can.
study, I was led to, because I wasn't all for it, but I got on board. This is gonna fix these issues, and now I'm hearing more about the issues than maybe, so fine. You're aware of it.
Yeah, it gives a parameter,
Not everybody's
but you're
gonna
still
be
gonna
happy.
have to.
no, we know that, that's for
And-
sure.
And the reason
No,
six
no one,
came-
no one never is anyway,
And the
period.
reason so many came forward at once is because we're restructuring the way we're doing the budget. That's for 2022 now, so we won't be coming back in November. We won't be coming
Well,
back
we see
in
that
January.
when we do the personnel, when we have a personnel and they come through and want a new employee.
I like it this way too, have it ahead of the budget, have it done, know where our costs are really gonna be, and move on. And I thought we came to some good conclusions of
Yeah.
it. It's just
There's-
learning how that whole thing started and understanding it better, you know,
Yeah, there's some things we did, but there's some things we didn't do.
Sure.
right?
Sorry.
Yep, nope, I wanted to make sure you picked off that anyway. And then I also had the extension meeting with Julie where we had all three counties, McLeod, Wright, and Meeker, and discussing whether we should have an horticulture extension person added on that each of us would do, and the net cost would be $4,500, which is something I saw would be a positive thing, because then each of these extension people can actually focus on the questions that they are know. And in this kind of climate too, I think one more ag extension person around, especially, you know, if it's in right too, promoting agriculture in a positive spin and rather what you many times hear a negative spin with all the climate stuff. So I was kind of for that. And then, let's see, not too much, that was it for committees. A few other personal or other meetings, you know, Kurt, Andrew, Beth, and I met with Kurt I wanted to, because he said the open door policy, and all I'd suggest is if each board member wants to learn a little more about the hospital thing, then I'd encourage that, because he was pretty transparent in terms of what he had to say, and I learned more in terms of that, and I'll leave that as said.
It was a good meeting, I think.
And like I said, going into it, he had an open door policy, and he pretty much answered every question I had for him. And I encourage everybody to do that and learn a little more about it, because it is an important part of our county, assets in terms of that. And you'll learn more and understand it better, and I think at least you'll understand where he's coming through.
I'd encourage, take a look at that new, walk-in clinic they built. I mean, I got a tour of that the other day, that was just something. And those folks that are gonna be taking the information from people coming in, there's bulletproof sheetrock there.
Admissions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of that. But I mean, it really was, and what they're doing up on the second floor too, with the new, clinics, where they're moving the surgeons in, they'll have their own little office and stuff. It was fun to see that. When are they gonna, that new walk-in clinic must be
Well, I think they're waiting now for
state.
state certificate, and then of course there's always getting staff here. That's always an issue. I think he's got some people in mind to do that.
But I mean, it's a good tour. And isn't very long, 20 minutes max. See it, but it's well worth seeing.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Well, I guess I can go. Covered half of it with Danny on class and comp. Did have our first in-person MMDC meeting on the 23rd. Mid-Minnesota our Development Commission out in Wilmer. There's been a host of turnover in MMDC. Don Winkler retired last year, 32 years. Les Anderson just retired. He had 28 years, I think. So there's been a lot of change and turnover there. They are pretty excited, I guess, about the future. Eric Day used to work at CMJTS over here in Family Services Building, Social Service Building. He is now the executive director at MMDC, and he's been very active and very involved. We did their budget, did approve a budget of 3%, which throughout the area equates, it's a minimal percentage. I think on a $200,000 home or $175,000 home, I was like 16 cents or something. So they cover, the area covers it is minimal impact on taxes. Other than that, they had Grove City Care. They're doing quite well. Grove City, the first Saturday in June, they had their windmill days. That was very well attended. And things went very good there. As far as the care board, they did have their first bonfire night, they call it, where they had about 45 people attend, and it's all elderly. There's 17 apartments in the school building there, and then people from around the community, elderly, and they came out, I went there and barbecued hamburgers and stuff for them, so, that was very well attended. I don't remember what night that was, but, that was a good event, beautiful evening. So the elderly are getting out and getting back to normal, they're starting to do more of their crafts and things like that there, so. They are gonna operate the first quarter of their new year, which is started July 1, with no funding from, DHS. And that's something they're already they are concerned about. This program does operate, off a lot of grants and things, so, the one concern I've talked to Paul Bukovich about this too over the years is that, right now you've got excellent, director over there at a care program, and she's really good at finding money and writing grants, but eventually that's a non-sustaining process.
How much is their budget?
$175,000 a year, right in there, so. And they get from DHS, it's a 2-year grant, usually about $130,000.
So.
And they've been cutting that back, and
That's
now
what they
they're
do.
holding it back, and
They're
I think.
holding it back completely.
Well, they're not telling them anything. For the first quarter, you're just living with what you got,
Wow.
so. And I think part of that is some of the fallout from some of the problems that DHS had 2 years ago. I mean, they're still gonna, their mess with the state is gonna be paid for by the counties and the programs that serve them.
One of those deals.
So that's a problem. We had that AMC meeting, I did make a note here, there's Matt Friedman, the AMC that he works, he has some childcare, he works on some childcare, programs with the state, through AMC, and I was gonna get him connected with Lisa Graffentine, because, I haven't been able to make any of the childcare meetings like with Judy Holterstrom, lately, but I think partnering Lisa and Matt together might find some avenues there.
Well, Chris Lowe has been coming, Chris has been attending
Chris,
those
too.
meetings. Did you get to the last one, Ed? We had the ditch meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at the last full group meeting, yeah.
Anything?
We discussed there was a handout that they had put together, that Lisa had put together along with Chris, for providing information about the challenges that Meeker County faced. So when we talk with state legislators or other folks who may have the ability to tap into resources, it's kind of a one sheet that goes through some of that. There continues to be discussions about possible expansion of or a new center coming in, possibly in the Dassel area, and then continuing to they're finalizing a survey right now to go out to childcare providers and potential childcare providers to talk about what their needs are and how a funding stream could potentially help them.
This is not our first survey. My struggle,
Yeah.
and God bless them all, but my struggle with this daycare task force, and Steve, maybe, I'm not quite sure what they're in need of that we can actually rock solid provide, because am I saying this wrong? It seems like we get a big picture and then, we've done childcare appreciation twice. Okay, that's great, but what else have we done? And when we try to find the need, then I don't really we've had several surveys, so now to hear
Yeah.
they're doing another survey is interesting to me.
So,
But
so
it
this
doesn't
one's
seem like we get to the
yeah,
bottom.
this one's
You know what I'm
focused.
saying?
Yeah, this one's specifically focused on a community fund. So
Well,
what are
I don't think this,
Well-
go ahead.
so what are the things that you feel would be good use? Is it training? Is it grants to help with infrastructure for an in-home daycare? You need to put in a fence or something like that. Things like that.
I mean, here's one, so, is there a shortage in daycare? I'm assuming there is, right? So then when we had a meeting, but not this last one I didn't attend, but the last one I was able to attend, then they had a waiting list for infants, okay? And they're not full on infants, but they can't find anybody to come in and work so they can take the infants, so it just goes, so then is the answer, do we have to help some funding for staff? Or is that nobody's working? You know, it just goes, it's just,
It's,
you know what I'm saying?
the direction isn't real
That's
clear.
what
I
I'm
mean,
struggling with a little bit.
because I don't, and that's what I've been doing through EDA a little bit too, is trying to, I mean, is it in-home daycare, that's the I mean, if we throw all the money, I guess my question is, we throw all the money in the world at in-home daycares, is it gonna fix the problem?
Right,
I
That's the
don't see a
problem.
clear answer on that.
that's my issue.
Is it, and then at the same time you hear, is in-home daycare, I'd rather support in-home daycare. But is that necessarily the focus of the future? Or are we looking at daycare centers that are then privately ran?
Right,
I mean, I'm not getting a lot of clear there's a lot of questions.
it's just
than there
difficult
is
for
answers.
me, and maybe it'll get clearer to understand what we need to really focus on to help, because this, I've been on this committee for however long. Of course, when the pandemic hit, things changed, but I don't know what is the need more daycare or more help in the daycare centers we have? Should we be center-based or home care-based? Should we, I'm like you, I prefer.
You're trying to navigate through and
So
find out
I'm
what's the
struggling
best
a little
target.
bit with it.
Mhm.
So maybe you know.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. It feels like we spin our wheels in here, and it's because there's some barriers out there that are not particularly clear, or it's all of the above. You know, workers is a major issue. It's it's low wage work, and then for the folks who run the centers, it's the thin margins. And so I know that what we hear is, at least for the in-home daycare, that we have folks who start to go through the process to get the license to do it, but often they're starting that process a little late of where they should be. You know, they've made the decision, oh, I'm going to do this now because, I've lost a job, or I'm making a job change, or because, now I have kids who need this, and so I want to. And so, but the amount of time that it takes to go through all the certifications to get licensed to have your home up to speed is not fast enough for these folks to start making an income. And so they go and they do something else instead.
So is that what
That's one of,
funding? Do they,
That's the
and that's exactly,
private one,
and that's
a lot of times the rules.
Yeah.
I mean,
It always is.
I mean, it's
And
just.
that was a lot of the initial discussion with the daycare. And if I remember right, we don't even charge for everything that we used to charge for through the social service to try to, and we always try to speed it along. But people need money, so, they can only wait so long if they're trying to do this, obviously. So I just hope that we can get more specific needs so that we can address them. That's
And
kind of
I'll
what.
throw you another curve. I've also been told that one of the reasons for all the rules is so they can disincentivize the in-home daycares and the private, so it can be more of a center, which then falls under Minnesota Department
I
of
absolutely,
Education.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely
no doubt.
believe you, and that scares me to death, so,
Which,
yeah.
Exactly.
throw that in the mix.
I never
And
thought
then
of
Which
it's
is-
like,
It.
yeah.
That is
yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's kind of scary.
it is concerning,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially outstate here. I mean, this is,
I agree, so.
it always comes back
Used to be grandma and grandpa watch, mom was home, and which I wish more moms were home, but, God, did I say that?
Oh boy.
But everybody can't be.
Oh my.
Danny.
I'm done with my
We're having a
report.
connection.
I understand. But it's wonderful when they can, but that's everybody's choice. So,
And I am done with my report.
I'm sure you are.
Thank you for that brief report, Steve.
Good segue.
So, also, I'm gonna get off that subject. Woodland, there's, as we said, clinicians are becoming an issue, and a lot of it goes back to pay, so we're looking into that. One interesting thing was, I had a discussion with Ashley before the last meeting about our purchase of service contract, because Danny and I had met with Drew. And she has become aware that these contracts are old, like before her, obviously. And probably a lot of the commissioners aren't aware of what's in the purchase of service contracts. So we're gonna do an education in August to bring all the commissioners that are on the board up to speed on what the contracts involve. And maybe to look in if there's gonna be some refiguring of them, how to do that. So that, I found that interesting. We had an audit report that came out fine, and I think that the doors we're starting to do some in-office visits. They are finding out that some people have better attendance and stuff remotely than they do. I think with children more, they like to see them in person, but for adults, it maybe fits into their busy lives a little bit easier to do remote, so they'll still be doing better. The second meeting I had was the shelter. The big thing out of there is we're badly in need of a van. So we set a budget of $25,000. We'll start looking for a van to move animals. We're looking for we have a low-cost spay and neuter program. We're trying to find a better rollout because it's been kind of overwhelming, people coming in, and then we're trying to take care of our regular animals too. We had a fundraiser called Jordan's Way. Don't ask me how it all worked, but because I didn't really understand it all. But they raised almost over $13,000, so that was good. That was that. And then I went to my first HRA meeting, and I'm going to tell you, I didn't take a lot of notes. I was just kind of listening, trying to understand what was what. One thing that did come out of it that we talked about is this voucher program. They have a waiting period. They have people waiting to get in. And then Steve, there's an eightplex in Eden Valley that's in low-income housing. That's for sale for $350,000. And they're trying to get a package together, I think, to purchase it. I told them to give you a call because you're also on EDA, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I called Andrew.
8 blocks, okay.
And I was wondering, they would like to manage the program, they really don't wanna buy it. I mean, I think they're trying to get some money together through the state or something. And I think this eightplex is already low income, if I understand it all.
The only one if it's a building and thing, I didn't realize it was for sale or anything like that, but.
Apparently they've been working on it a while, but anyway, I mentioned also, the money that we got coming through the American Rescue Plan, would we be able to purchase that and just let them manage it? I don't know. I reached out to Andrew a little bit about it.
I'll have to ask some
Do you
more
know
questions.
Do you know Carla Lundeen? She's the one that, she's the,
Well, it's gotta be in Meeker County, right? I mean,
yeah.
then it's gotta be.
I told her
it's
to
gotta
maybe
be
reach out to you or Andrew. Did she reach out to you?
about a
She's not
block
reached out
from
to
my
me.
house.
Okay,
Oh.
so, I mean, it's important we keep it in that program, obviously. If we could find a way for them to purchase it. I don't know if they would rather just manage it, but, because if I'm understanding this right, the manager of the HRA program is under contract, not really an employee, it's Carla. So-
Yeah, okay, and I've met Carla already
Yeah.
through,
But why did you tell me
CARES
we
Act.
can't buy it through that, American Rescue money?
Because we would have to be able, well, we could potentially, but we'd have to be able to demonstrate that we are providing benefit for communities that are adversely impacted by the pandemic. So
No, so.
what, did you have a price, did they say the price? What they want?
350,000, I think, is what I wrote down in my notes, but
I didn't realize it was for sale.
you know which one it is.
I almost
It
has to
sounds
be
like
the
it's
one.
already low-income housing, does that make sense? Probably.
Yeah, I've had
And I think they're
many
trying to
rescue
get,
calls there.
okay,
so
they're trying to get a package together, and I don't know then if the federal, see, I'm so new to HRA that I don't wanna say.
It's a double.
It's a double.
They'll use some states,
Some states, some federal grants. But if we could help them, and I also thought being it's your area, and
Yeah,
you're on EDA, that I said to reach out to you, so
Yeah,
if she
no,
does, you'll
that's,
know.
and now I did meet Carla through the CARES Act, some of the
Okay,
CARES Act
yep.
stuff, she came to,
That's right, we
Sweet
talked about
200
air
and-
conditioners,
yep,
that she
Yep.
got money through that, so.
so there's.
I didn't realize how many
I didn't
people-
realize their interest, I didn't realize it was for sale.
No, it sounds like it hasn't, I don't know how they found out about
I think I thought it was
it. And I don't know
sold
if
not
it's a
too long
local,
ago.
I don't know if it's a local owner or a corporation, or I have no idea.
It's possible it's in bankruptcy. 'Cause I know who used to own it,
Yeah,
but
I
I
know.
thought it got sold, but perhaps it didn't. So I'll have to dig into that one.
So just a heads up,
Yeah,
if somebody
yep.
calls, I think it's important we keep it in low-income housing. That's not what they call it, but that's what
Yep.
they call it. What is the proper word? I've hung myself so badly today.
Subsidized.
Yeah, I know.
I mentioned women at home, I said.
Oh,
"I've never
yeah.
said
What
that."
did you say again, Commissioner Olberg?
I didn't mean it
thought it
that
was
way.
something about
I've worked all my life.
barefoot in the kitchen.
Oh, my goodness, exactly. Holy
And all
crap.
that stuff, I'm not sure.
You've been talking to my dad lately, huh?
So that's what I have, and then we've had some personnel meetings, I'm sure you're all getting them now, so you all know what's going on there, so.
So you have a vacancy on the ED. Is that the one I saw Ron apply for?
Ron, and I have, actually, I was gonna be gone on Thursday. We got a EDA meeting on Thursday night, and I think I'm gonna be able to readjust my schedule. 'Cause we're gonna
So
do
that's
that in
Ron
person.
who's on the HRA already.
And I've got another one I gotta talk to a guy from Watkins that I put
Who are they replacing?
Dennis Locke.
Oh, so it is a Watkins.
Yeah,
It has to be.
Dennis moved across
That's
the
one of
county
those
line.
that's by areas.
Yeah.
So if Ron lives on Swan Lake, is he in the
Clear
area?
Lake. He's on Clear Lake.
Clear Lake, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's in my district.
And Ron's term is up on the HRA in July.
Oh, is it?
Is he hit his max on that, or can he reappoint there?
I would have to look back to see if he's certain.
I've talked to a gentleman, that's on the Watkins EDA, and that seems to fit real nice, like Eden Valley, the mayor is on EDA, and he's on the county EDA, and that seems to work a nice fit. But, they understand what they need, and so
You
that's.
got anything going on with EDA? Anybody coming in looking for cash?
Not a
Really
whole
not.
lot. We're
Seems
gonna.
like that's been pretty stagnant for a while.
And I should mention that in some of, I know it's been out there now too, that was a note that I had too, but I ended my report a little early, but, at least I did put out, there's some, EDA or economic development, social media posts going around about, surveys for the community. I think there's 14 questions for businesses and stuff that need assistance yet, and
I got that.
one of the things we'll be talking about on Thursday's meeting is, taking some of these surveys and things that we got feedback on and what ARP looks like moving forward for businesses.
I'm just
too,
gonna
so.
bet you, I took that survey and what we need is staff. I'm close to, we don't have staff. And I don't know what's gonna stop that. I don't know what's gonna help that. I was in a restaurant Sunday where they had open tables. And finally the gal who was probably about young like me, came up and said, it's gonna be at least 20 minutes, and it was an open air cafe, so you could see the empty tables, and she said, we don't have enough staff. They could seat about 1/4 of the dining room. And so we went to the next place, and that lady that waited on us had been there all day, and she was about my age also, so I don't know. But that's what I'll bet you money, that's what you're gonna hear is staffing, is we're closed 2 days because of it.
Well, and I know, talking to different employers and separate industry though too, they all said too, June came around, they expected to see these kids, and I said, where'd everybody go?
Where did they go?
I mean, it's like, there's just no, season, thought they were gonna get some high school kids
They're
or
not
something
getting
to work, and they're
unemployment
just
too,
not.
are they?
I hope not.
Yeah, so.
Unemployment to do
Some of the
Xbox.
states that took that bonus away, they're suing them to get it, the people that aren't working are suing them to get it money back, so they have time to go look for an attorney, but they don't have time to go
Yeah.
look for work. I just am really concerned about the future. I hope this is temporary, but I don't know. I mean, are we filling look how long it took to fill Joel's position.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at the pay, it's under $17 an hour, which those positions aren't, if you were home getting that bonus,
Did Phil get his 3? He was trying to hire 3 for the summer, Phil?
Oh, I haven't seen any of those come through yet. I don't think that they,
And it's already the middle of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just forget it.
The kids would fight each other. Of course, I'm old, but back as my son says, when the dinosaurs were roaming the world. To get those lawn mowing jobs for
Oh,
the city, or
coveted.
a bus came and we went corn detasseling, by the way, and it
Yeah.
was hard work and you worked hard, so you got that bonus at the end of the year. Mosquitoes and,
Corn testing wasn't miserable.
oh, miserable.
man.
Hot, itchy.
But but now, I don't know how are they gonna feel, I don't know what they're gonna do. What's gonna happen when they start the corn packing plant and stuff, they're not, I don't know.
Especially with all the mothers encouraged to stay home now.
That's just me, County.
I just wanna have a private discussion about that. I have some family-
Any
Couldn't resist
additional
that one.
I could
snide
just say,
remarks?
Andrew.
We better get out of it. I'll make a motion to
I could
adjourn.
pick-
Yeah, I think so.
Andrew, as your wife, you don't allow your wife to work out of the home, do you?
Oh, boy. Allow her. I will not allow her.
She's home raising a lovely little girl.
I'm retired.
Yeah, we,
has her own free will now.
There you go.
yeah.
My husband had me working 2, 3 different jobs. Yeah. Get going. I believe this meeting is now adjourned, but we have, Corey wanted us to bring our calendars and contemplate an evening picnic.
Yeah, I can
Can
stop
we,
recording.
Yeah.
can we do that
Are we
at
adjourned?
this time?
Yes, we are adjourned.
We are adjourned.
You're adjourned.
So for some reason, I think we always had it on a Tuesday, don't we?
We have